saving America one mind at a time. This is Smith Radio. And now, your hosts, Carrie and Brian Smith.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Smith Radio. Your host, Brian Smith, and
Carrie Smith.
On the line, on the road. We'll be back in town next week. We've got a lot to talk about. It's absolutely incredible. I mean, when you talk about news for the week, it's just been absolutely insane. We've got tons of sound bites. If you want to be a part of the show, normally on Sunday evenings when we are live, it's 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern time. And then if you want to be a part of the show, you could call in 513-888-1538. But we've got Carrie on the line, so there will be no call-in tonight. But if you do go straight to Smith Radio, and that's SMYTH, smithradio.info, that'll take you directly to the live broadcast at 5 p.m. Eastern time on Sunday. And you can join the chat room, and you can chat to us throughout the evening, talk to us, give your feedback, and if it's part of the subject, or if Donald J. Trump, DJT, drops in again, we'll comment on it and reply back to you. So let me get the show notes up here. This is going to be a big show, and it's going to go really, really fast. There's a lot of information that we're trying to get out. We're going to recap not all of last week, but we're going to recap the biggest stories of last week, that talk about them, give you our take on them, let you know what you didn't hear and what you should know about what it was. The Comey Hearings, we're going to talk about that a little bit. Nunez Breaking News on the wiretapping, and the title of the show today, Deep State versus Donald Trump, which is exactly what it is. Obama is live and kicking, and we've got one of the other talk show guys likes to call Maxine Waters Kerosene Maxine, which I like the name because you never know when she's going to light a fire or explode or spill the beans, and she did this week. Deep State is absolutely deep, and she confirms it to some no-name guy, and nobody picked it up. Everybody kind of walked away from it. RyanCare, as it appropriately is, RyanCare. We'll talk about that. And some good news to start the show off with, some really good news. Donald Trump green lights the XL pipeline, something that Obama couldn't do in 8 years. He did in just under 70 days. We're also going to talk about, the healthcare issue. The British terror attack that CNN coincidentally got that wrong again. CNN calling it a firearms attack of sorts. We'll get into the details. The guy didn't have a firearm. Neil Gorsuch, I just got a couple of sound bites on that, a couple of sound clips. Laura Ingraham, Dianne Feinstein, to give you the left and the right take on that. And then one thing that you probably, unless you're really tuned in, and this kind of frustrates me, Fox News Research, it's at Fox News Research on Twitter. They didn't do a story on this, and I didn't see it in the news, but they did it. They tweeted out a closer look at manufacturing jobs in the month of February 2017. 28,000 jobs were added under Donald J. Trump. Monthly average gains previous 2 years, 2,000 jobs.
That's actually amazing because, doesn't it take time? You don't just snap your fingers and add manufacturing. You need like a factory, and you need products, and you need tools. You need to set up the tooling for the manufacturing. It's kind of amazing that you would just elect a president. It's almost like the factories were sitting there empty, but full of tools and products and ready to be manufactured. But there was just, the economy was terrible, and there was no prospects for it ever working properly. And then you elect Donald Trump, a successful businessman, who's going to implement the kind of policies that allows for a robust manufacturing economy. And all those dormant factories that are sitting around waiting for the management to hire new people to build products in America just went right into gear, right? It seems like that way for it to happen so quick.
Right. No, absolutely. I would have to say, just speculating on it, that just in business in general, there's a good possibility that a lot of these companies are sitting on their money, waiting for their money to either just make money in interest or have it kind of stored away, because investing it in their business is too highly speculative right now. So I'm going to go ahead and just leave it, not under the pillow, folks, but leave it in the bank so that at least I'm drawing 2% versus losing, half of it. That's a possibility. I will say, when I saw the story come out last week, I was out shopping. I had the kids with me. I was out shopping, and I just looked around. I'm going to tell you right now, man, there were a lot of people out shopping as well. There's just something different in the air. It just seemed different. Like people came off to you. People say hi to you. People just, I don't know. Maybe it's me, but I feel this different air about it.
A lot of people, in case you didn't know and why I'm calling in and not in the studio, I am a wrestling coach. Some of you guys that may listen to me on Your Voice Radio may affectionately have heard me called Coach, because there's also a Carrie Kellum in there. And so when they say, what do you think about that Carrie, there's a little bit of confusion there. So a lot of people call me Coach. I am a wrestling coach, and I just came from Youngstown I'm actually on my way back from Youngstown. And I'm going to tell you, based on what you're talking about, how everything just feels better and feels like things are on the up and there's like a positivity in the air, Youngstown has a long way to go. And they may not know it. Maybe relative to a year ago, maybe it is on the uptick. But, gosh, that place looks like it's like Detroit Light or something. It's like, or like a mini Detroit or something. It's really sad. There used to be this giant factory where like 3/4 of the windows, and I'm talking old factory, like turn of the 20th century type factory, and like all the windows were like busted out from kids that were bored just breaking out windows by throwing rocks through them and stuff. I mean, this thing was enormous, like 10 stories high and like a football field long, a football field wide. Well, this year when we went back, the whole thing was demolished.
Wow.
And maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking, they left it there because nobody could even afford to do anything with it, whether it be rehab it or demolish it. And maybe that's a sign of the economy turning around, because now it's demolished. So that eyesore is gone. But there's a lot of other stuff. I mean, it's part of the Rust Belt. When you talk about the Rust Belt, definitely Youngstown is like the epicenter of that. And they got a ways to go, I would tell you that.
Yeah, no, when you've got a situation like that in a city that's that far decimated, yeah, it's going to take some time on the recovery end. But if you've got cities like Cincinnati, big manufacturing town, machine shop town, a lot of the shops that I've seen in the past that weren't doing much business seem to be humming along. Their doors are open and ready for more work and more, more this, more that, and a lot of hiring, a lot more opportunities for manufacturing, if you will, in Cincinnati. So maybe that's what it is. Kind of a different skewed on that versus Youngstown. But yeah. So speaking of Cincinnati, you want to touch on this real quick? I forgot about it until talking about Cincinnati. Hey, Carrie, what happened?
Massive terror attack, mass shooting.
Oh, hold on. What happened in Cincinnati last night?
Yeah, right. So I wake up this morning and I see that I think it was somebody from InfoWars talked about a mass shooting in Cincinnati, and I thought, I better check in on that. So did a little research and found out that it was a club on Kellogg Ave. We'll start with that. But as soon as I read the word club, I thought, oh gosh, it's going to be another Pulse nightclub massacre type situation. Or, they did, I think it was dance clubs or concert clubs or something.
Oh, yeah.
In Paris that had the really bad one. Was it 100 people dead or over 150 people dead or something like that?
Yeah, they had live music. They had live bands there as well. Yeah, it was a big concert venue type thing.
Yeah, like with multiple floors and everything. So when I heard club, I thought, oh gosh, what happened in Cincinnati. And then they said Kellogg Ave. And when I heard that, I thought instantly, my first thought was, well, that's not terrorism.
No, me too. Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's practically rural. It's right next to Lunken Airport, which is way off the outskirts of town. It's actually right on the Ohio River, which, by the way, Brian lived for 10 years in LA, and his wife is West Coast and everything like that. And when they came back to Cincinnati, his wife was amazed that there were more high-dollar real estate investments right on the river. It's like, because in LA, all the most expensive properties are right on the coast, right?
Yeah, she was excited to find out that, hey, why don't we get a place on the river? Like, there's nobody there.
like E-Town or something like that, right?
Right.
No, yeah, well, let me let you guys that aren't from Rivertown in on a little secret. Nobody except people that can't afford anything else probably live right on the riverbank. So.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And this Kellogg Avenue on the east side, out 52, I think it was 52. It's just not a very, I don't know. The name of the club was called Cameo. And the thing is they pride themselves on the fact that anybody 18 and older can come in. And this place is not.
I didn't even realize that. It's 18 and over?
Right. And they are not.
No.
There's nothing new. Shootings, there's nothing new about that in Cameo at all.
Well, I didn't know that at first. Now, you got to understand, too, that Brian and I are from the west side of town. And we are a very strange city when it comes to east and west. We don't cross borders.
We're not allowed to go over. We're not allowed to go over there.
Yeah, they have different dress codes and everything. I'm not kidding at all.
They drive. They drive Volvos, and we drive Fords.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot different, and a lot of them are transplants. A lot of people that live on the east side aren't even from Cincinnati,
right?
And they're more wealthy, more hoity-toity on that kind of stuff. But anyway, so I decided, well, we got to figure out what's up with this. It says there's 15 casualties. One of them is a fatality. There were several different reports that were conflicting. One actually said that there were 15 total shot.
Right.
15 people total shot. All of them were shot.
That's by.
And I thought that doesn't make any sense.
That was out by NBC claiming 15 were shot. Local WLWT said 16 shot, one fatally.
Right. Okay. So I was thinking maybe they mean just casualties or injuries. And I did read that. There was one account that said one fatality and 14 injured, but they didn't say how, which I thought was a little bit more of an accurate way to report it this early. And it made sense to me. Do you remember that Rhode Island nightclub where 100 people died in a fire?
Oh, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Yeah. Well, that nightclub, what happened there was once the fire broke out, it was so crowded that everybody ran for the door and they all got stuck. And that's how 100 people died in that one. So I'm thinking, if you start shooting in a nightclub, especially as crowded as I heard this one was, you're going to get injuries from people sprinting to the door. So I was thinking that maybe one person shot somebody else, and out of all the people running, 14 people were injured on the way out or something like that. I thought that was very plausible, but I wasn't sure. So I decided I need to find out more information because people are hinting or kind of, and by people I mean fake news. Fake news is acting like that this is a mass shooting. It's got to be terrorism. It's got to be, watch, when they release the name, it's going to be an Islamic name. Do you just watch? So I thought, there's no way. So I decided to call some of my buddies that are in law enforcement. The first one I called was is a SWAT team member, and I didn't even realize this until I ran into him when I was a motorcade driver for Donald Trump, and he was there, kind of securing that whole area when we did the Donald Trump thing. So I talked to him, and he called one of his buddies, and come to find out that they were all locals. Everybody involved.
Okay.
And it was a dispute that happened earlier in the day, and those same people met up with each other at the club. It may have been an accident, may have been on purpose, who knows? But then a shootout ensued, and now you're probably wondering, why are so many people injured? Well, Brian, I don't know if you've ever run with people in the wrong crowd. I definitely have had my little bit of background there with running with the wrong crowd when I was younger. This is what makes sense to me. If it was a dispute from earlier in the day, and you thought that you might run into these people, or maybe you intended to run into these people later in the day, you would not only arm yourself, but you would probably bring some boys.
Oh, yeah.
And tell them it's going down, and they would probably arm themselves too. And if the other side knew what kind of a crazy moron you were, that you would go into a club packing, you would probably pack too, and you would probably bring your boys, and they would be packing.
Well,
so you could imagine in a crowded club that once a shootout ensued, everybody's going to be shooting. I'll bet you we're going to find out that there were actually multiple shooters.
Well, a part of the story that came out, the local news here, originally reported multiple shooters. Now they're claiming it's like a Dallas thing all over, or Texas thing all over again. Now they're claiming it was one lone wolf on the run.
Well, that's just fake news. That is not correct at all.
That's WLWT on the ground.
No, yeah, these guys are totally wrong. The guy I talked to his friend in homicide. The guy is in homicide in Cincinnati. Trust me,
right.
We got the right news here. It was just some locals. They're youngsters. They think they're thugs. And another thing about the use of the word thugs, I know that there's a lot of social justice warriors throughout the country who like to hear the word thug and instantly knee-jerk react and say, oh, you're talking about black people.
No, there's a bunch of white thugs.
Racist.
There's a bunch of white thugs around here, too.
Oh, my gosh. When it comes to Cincinnati, and if you look at the location of this club, I mean, I don't know if there's much of a black population in that area. So we're not talking, I mean, when we say thugs, we could mean any race when we talk about it from Cincinnati. And so, and the thing too, there was talk of gang activity, and that raised an eyebrow with me because I didn't know that there was a gang problem in Cincinnati. So I questioned my other cop friend about that. So I actually have two sources, and he said, well, it may not be an organized gang, but, when you talk about groups of people who may dress similarly and behave in patterns that are similar with each other, we kind of categorize that as a gang, even though it may not fit the kind of mafia style like old gangsters from the 30s or something like that. So, that's...
Right.
So when he says gang, what he really means is that these guys are friends and they like to do illegal activity together as a group.
Right.
So
somebody interviewed by local news on the scene said this is just claim. Just this guy on the scene said he was in the club at the time that made a claim that 20 minutes before the shootings happened, the DJ actually called for security.
You know what? That corroborates my report then.
Right, because that goes against WWT's report.
They're wrong. They're dead wrong.
Dude, they reported two things that don't corroborate with each other.
Well, it certainly would raise. You know what that sounds like? It sounds like if that were true, then that means the DJ was in on. He was an accomplice,
right? Something of the sort, right?
That would be the only explanation if you were to believe what WLWT was saying. So, right. I posted this stuff on Twitter today, and I had some important people thank me for real news because. People are sick and tired of people overhyping fake news, and they're doing it for the hype. They're trying to get the clicks. They want to go viral. They want everybody to retweet, everybody share their stuff. And the only way you can really ensure that is if it's something shocking and different. And so everybody wants to act like there's either terrorism or, whatever. Dude, this is just a bunch of kids that think that they're gangsters who found their daddy's gun and brought it to the club with them. I didn't realize that you could even get in this club if you were under 21. Kind of reminds me of caddies from back in the day.
They're not open anymore. Yeah, and they're not open anymore. Right.
Well, and by the way, here's some other things that I could tell you about what the cops told me. They said that there's shootings at this place all the time.
Yeah.
And that these thugs go out there for because they know that cops don't really go out there that much. You know, city cops are going to remain in the city, and I don't even know if that's within the city actual border, whether they're under the jurisdiction of the Cincinnati Police Department. I'm not sure, but they're out there, you know, and I could imagine there'd be a lack of police presence.
They had Cincinnati PD in the camera shot of the club. So they were on the scene.
And that makes sense, too. The reason that makes sense is because Cincinnati's border isn't a perfect oval or a circle. It's more, it kind of follows the river for a while. Like Sailor Park, which is way out there on the river, it's actually a part of Cincinnati. It's within the city limits because the city limits actually spread out along the river there. So it would make sense that Kellogg Ave is considered part of the city, too.
Right. So, it is what it is, folks. That like Carrie said, this club has had many instances in the past. Some of the reporting that I dug up from local news was that 2 times in 2015 there were shootings. There was a shooting just recently where a guy actually shot himself in the foot at the club. There are not metal detectors, but there's security at the front door with the wand, the metal detecting wand, and they're wondering how the guy got in with a gun in this club. But this club's got a bad reputation, and this might be the end of this club.
Yeah, that doesn't sound good. In fact, there were people that were replying to me on Twitter saying, why don't they pull these people's liquor license? Which is interesting because if they allow people 18 and under in there, under 21. That'd be 18 to 21. Maybe they don't have a liquor license at all. So that's not really the issue then.
I would think that I've been to venues to where there were underage people and you get a wristband, which meant you couldn't drink. So that's a possibility they have that situation set up. But local city,
I forgot about the wristband thing. That makes sense.
Local city ordinance could just come in and say, you know what, you guys aren't being responsible enough. We're pulling it. I don't know, but I'm just speculating.
Well, yeah, and also when the responders came, and I read this in one of the reports, the parking lot was so overpacked that they couldn't even get the first responders in there.
Wow.
Yeah, so there was a lot of illegal parking. If you look at these kinds of city ordinances would not allow you to park in certain areas that would be considered a fire lane, which is exactly what they would be using those fire lanes for. If there's a mass shooting, they would have to bring in a bunch of ambulances and line them up in the fire lane. So they were violating all kinds of stuff. And, maybe they'll get shut down now.
Right, let's hope so. So let's just jump into it. We've got a lot of things going on. You want to, since we're talking about injuries and firings, and you want to get right into what Donald Trump did the other day. Donald Trump tweeted out to everybody, watch Judge Jeanine's show, just a couple hours before her show, said, hey, watch her show. And this was her opening monologue. It's 2 minutes long, and please listen intently, because Donald Trump said, hey, everybody, watch her show.
Paul Ryan needs to step down as Speaker of the House. The reason? He failed to deliver the votes on his health care bill, the one trumpeted to repeal and replace Obamacare, the one that he had 7 years to work on, the one he hid under lock and key in the basement of Congress, the one that had to be pulled to prevent the embarrassment of not having enough votes to pass. But this bill didn't just fail. It failed when Republicans had the House, the Senate, the White House. And the timing? It failed within the first 70 days of President Donald Trump's administration, a president who made replacement of Obamacare the hallmark of his campaign, and then used valuable political capital to accomplish it. You know, Americans elected the one man they believed could do it, a complete outsider, someone beholding to no one but them. And Speaker Ryan, you come in with all your swagger and experience, and you sell him a bill of goods, which ends up a complete and total failure. And you allow our president, in his first 100 days, to come out of the box like that? Based on what? Your legislative expertise, your knowledge of the arcane ins and outs of the bill writing process, your relationships, what, your drinks at the Hay Adams with your pals? Folks, I want to be clear. This is not on President Trump. No one expected a businessman to completely understand the nuances, the complicated ins and outs of Washington and its legislative process. How would he know which individuals upon whom he would be able to rely?
So what do you think about that opening?
Oh, that was awesome. That was 2 minutes. That seems shorter than that. That was, yeah. Normally we play a 2-minute clip and we're like, oh my gosh, are we really going to play this? But, no, that was great. You know, it makes me wonder because while this was all going down, I'm trying to figure out whether or not this was intended by Trump and that this was helping Trump, or that he was intending that it was actually going to pass and that it was a failure for Trump. And the way that she explains it in a way that makes me ask another question that I never really thought of before. Is he intending to be the martyr? And the reason I'm asking that is because he did come out the day before the vote, and I'm talking about Trump now, and did a mass email, and I received it, and said, please call your congressman and urge him or her to vote for the repeal and replacement of Obamacare. And so I thought, okay, so he's attaching his name to it. And if he's going to attach his name to it, this damn well better pass, or else this is going to look bad for Trump. But actually, if he is intending to make himself look like a martyr at the expense of Paul Ryan, then maybe it was intended. What do you think about that?
Wow. Yeah, I don't like it.
It's weird because I was thinking, how could Donald Trump be okay with looking like he lost a battle here? But if it's kind of like, hey, I'm just backing Ryan because we got to do something, and then the whole thing completely implodes and collapses, it'll be mostly on Ryan. I understand that. But for him to so firmly attach his name as to send out a mass email urging everybody to vote for it, I mean, you know, I thought it was pretty clear what he was trying to do. But now that it's failed, and you know, I almost went so far as to say, you know, the analogy that I use, the Texas sharpshooter, right, Brian?
Right.
Where things happen, and then the supporters of Trump run around and paint little targets on all the bullet holes all over the barn. And it makes it look like he hits his target every time. But really, it's after the fact. The bullets were already fired. They already hit whatever they were going to hit. And then the Trump supporters run around and put the little targets on all the holes to make it look like they were bullseyes. And I almost thought, gosh, this is just too far. You know, even Mike Cernovich came out with that video that you sent me to watch.
Oh, yeah.
And I went ahead and watched it, and he's urging all of his followers, this is a big win for Trump. And my first initial reaction is wow, that might be a little bit too far for me to travel along with you at first. But now that I listen to Judge Jeanine, and I couple that with what Mike Cernovich is saying, and what you're saying, and what everybody else is saying, even Bill Mitchell, with the way he says it, it all makes sense if you consider that making Donald Trump a martyr in this is going to make people so angry at Paul Ryan that it will just expedite his ousting of as a speaker.
And Sean Spicer and Trump have both commended Paul Ryan on the job that he attempted to do. So it's not that Trump or Spicer or this administration is throwing Ryan under the bus, which is kind of interesting because it plays into that narrative that it's not Trump's fault. I mean, I hate to say it like that, but that it is Ryan's fault, and we do need to drain the swamp. And if this is the only way that Trump feels that the swamp has to be drained because of the situation at hand, then so be it. But Joel Pollack, that writes for Breitbart News, this is the article he wrote, just the first 4 or 5 sentences of the article he wrote, and this is how he put it. He said, exactly 2 weeks ago, Joe Pollack, predicted the defeat of the American Health Care Act and explained that it was a step towards the final actual deal that will repeal and replace Obamacare. President Donald Trump faces 3 irreconcilable factions: the GOP establishment, conservatives, and the Democrats. He must bring them together to deliver the goods, a key rule in the art of the deal, but he must first show them the downside and convince them they will fail on their own.
Yeah, I mean, I totally buy that, and I know that argument has been made by other people too. I just couldn't believe that makes sense to me, like that it's true, if he's going to actually attach his name to it. But it seems like he's trying to get a 2-for-1, if that is true. If everything that they're speculating is true, it's like they're getting a 2-for-1. On one hand, they're going to see the version that people don't want in order to have a higher percentage chance of the one they really want to be implemented. But then the other thing that they're getting for it is if they're going to try to oust Ryan, I think you need more than just a failure on his part. I mean, Congress has been failures forever, especially, the establishment Republicans are horrible. But if you can show that his failure embarrassed President Trump, just like Judge Janine just said, it embarrasses our new president within 70 days. It's an embarrassment. And you embarrass our president, our dearly beloved president.
Right.
It makes him a martyr, and it outrages people. It's going to outrage the Trump supporters, because there's some diehard ones out there that, as far as they're concerned, Trump can do no wrong. And by the way, Mike Cernovich has said before that he's not one of those people that will say that Trump does no wrong, right? And for him to come out and say that this all is a big win for Trump says a lot, because he's not just a Trump cheerleader. Like I said before, he's come out in the past and said, don't you guys think I'm just going to come out and be a Trump cheerleader for 4 or 8 years, because it's not going to happen. If Trump does something that I don't like, I'm going to say it and I'm going to oppose him. But in this particular case, he's supporting what happened and he's calling it a big win for Trump.
Right. And Ben Garrison put out a tweet. He said, grasshopper, it was a trap for the establishment. It paves the way for new speaker and full repeal, 3D chess. And I find that quite interesting, because I was looking for the soundbite. There was a soundbite on Trump where they got him and they asked him about it after it went down. And Trump said, I'm a team player. We put this together, but it exposes the people they can't trust. It does a multiple things. It exposes a lot of people in Congress, or in the political realm, to where he knows who he can trust, maybe in the sense of trying to get a bill passed, versus Paul Ryan, and trusting Paul Ryan and putting something together, because this bill was Paul Ryan's bill. This was something that they had been cooking up since they wanted to repeal it back in 2010, 2012.
Do you really believe that? Because I heard this thing is a total hot mess. You know what it sounds like? There's a lot of people that said this is Obamacare light.
Right.
And
I heard that.
The reason why, if you look at the individual policies, there's a lot of similarities where they just kind of make it a little bit more conservative, or they try to make it as like they'll take certain items or policies in Obamacare and try to give it a conservative spin. You know what that sounds like to me? And Brian, you might be able to relate to this.
Okay. Okay.
I'm not trying to throw you under the bus.
No, go ahead.
Doesn't it sound like a kid who had a big project to do, a project that would normally take like 2-3 weeks in school? He waits till the last day and then asks a buddy if he could take his project, and he promises he'll change it up. He won't make it look like perjury. He won't make it look, not perjury, but where you copy. Right. I'm not going to copy. I'm going to plagiarize it. I'm not going to plagiarize it. I'm going to change it up so that the teacher will never know that I copied yours, okay?
Right.
And he took it, and he changed it up, and the teacher was like, this is a hot mess. And by the way, it looks an awful lot like John Smith over there, his project. And why? Because you try to do it in one day, and you have no idea what you're doing. I feel like there's a lot of truth to the criticism of RyanCare, where people have come out and said, you've had 8 years to mess around with this.
Right.
We elected, the Tea Party elected all these Freedom Caucus people and excuse me, I was messing around with my phone. We elected all these Freedom Caucus people in 2010, and then in 2014, we have all these Tea Party people, all these congressmen, and they all won because they ran on repealing and replacing Obamacare. So after all this time, we finally get a chance to do it, and you have nothing prepared? That is just unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Here, we've got that soundbite on Trump. Here's Trump's response. It's about 30 seconds long.
Real quick, I wanted to point this out. You talk about 4D chess or 3D chess, whatever.
That was Ben Garrison.
Yeah, I mean,
that was Ben Garrison.
You could make the argument. The argument could be that they traded. You could say he traded a queen for a queen. If you're a chess player, you know what that's all about. A lot of times, if you can take your opponent's queen and sacrifice your queen in the process, sometimes that's a good thing, depending on what kind of player you are. It may be that he sacrificed a rook for a queen, so I think he's gotten the better out of this. But also, check out this catch-22 that was created. Imagine that you're Paul Ryan and you have nothing prepared. They say repeal and replace is coming. We have the House. We have the Senate. Now President Trump has been elected, so now we have the presidency. We can actually repeal and replace this. Don't you think that if Trump had an inkling of an idea that Congress has prepared nothing, that this is what you would do to embarrass them? You'd come out and you'd say, yeah, repeal and replace. Let's do it. What do you got? Oh, you got something? Let me see. Oh, that's great. Let's do it right away. Let's not waste any time. Hurry up. You got 1 week. Let's get this thing voted on and blah, blah. And then actually support it and tell everybody to vote for it.
When they cut it up, they had a 3-phase rollout.
Okay.
And that goes along with the fact that they were completely ill-prepared. Trump says to him,
oh my God.
Hey, Ryan, I understand, buddy. I understand. We'll do a 3-phase rollout, so we'll actually kind of you work on it while we roll this out.
Right. You know what it reminds me of? You ever see, I wish I could give you an exact example, where a kid is lying to his dad. And the dad knows that he's lying. So as soon as he says the lie, he starts to question the lie so that you have to come up with another answer. But the answer to that is going to be another lie.
Right.
And then you ask a question about that lie. And you keep on going until they've completely painted themselves into a corner. But the whole time, the dad never accuses the child of lying. He just asks the follow-up questions and keeps on following up and keeps on following up until there's nowhere else to go than to admit that Daddy, I lied to you. You remember that first thing I said? Yeah, that was a lie. And everything else I said were all lies. So it's like Trump comes out and says, oh, you do have a replacement. Okay. And he's doing that thing that the dad does where he's like doing the follow-up questions. He's not coming out and saying that this is half-baked or that this isn't ready. This is horrible. Go back to the drawing board and redo it. He's literally saying, okay, well, present it to me. And so Ryan, who looks, he's got that hairline. He kind of looks like a monkey as it is. He's coming out and doing his monkey show and dancing for the public, and he's not prepared, and it looks horrible. And so put yourself in his shoes real quick. You have a choice. You either jam it through and look like a hero, even if it's half-baked, at least you got it through, or you go back to Trump and say, President Trump, I'm really sorry, but after all these years, you're going to have to give us more time. You've got to give us more time. We literally have done nothing to come up with a replacement. Literally. And I'm really sorry.
And so
I'm
Paul
sorry,
Ryan,
you got to give us time.
And so Paul Ryan goes to Trump and says to Trump, we don't have the votes. I'm going to pull it. And Trump's like, well, that's what you got. If that's what you got to do.
Yeah. Well, he did urge everybody to vote on it anyway. I think he told us to tell Congress to vote on it.
Well, if he did, but see, here's the thing. If he didn't sell us on the fact, we were talking about this last week and we told everybody, trust Trump. I still trust him. Trust Trump that he will do what has to be done to get it done. He's the first person that has ever run as a non-politician, non-government entity, not versed in the swamp, if you will, and he made it happen. He got himself there. He's putting his promises down. He's like, okay, I'm doing this, and this, executive order. Okay, now let's tackle that Obamacare thing. Let's rip that thing out. And then Ryan is shuffling his feet. He doesn't know where to go or what to do. He goes on Hannity's show a week before, and man, I don't know if you heard that on Hannity's show, but it was...
I don't think I did. I didn't hear that.
It was a hot mess. You could tell that it was so convoluted and so twisted in logic that Hannity eventually gave up and said, well, I don't know what to say. I mean, it was that bad.
Well, what was the question? Do you remember? Like, what was the problem you were getting stuck on?
Oh, he kept talking to him about the 3-phase rollout and having to not being able to do this in this manner. And you got to understand the way that these things are and how we have to carefully tiptoe and walk through this 3-step phase and the last phase. And it was like, wow, it was mind twisting what Ryan was talking about. It's just mind twisting. I was like, wow, it just doesn't even seem real. So, and then a caller called in right afterwards and, just blew up and said, this is never going to happen. This is too convoluted. And he's right. It was too convoluted. What we want in America and something that nobody's, I don't know. Tell me if somebody's been talking about this yet. Not only does healthcare have to get out of the hands of the government, but healthcare, the purchasing of it, the buying of healthcare for you and your family, not car insurance, not insurance, health insurance. Why does it have to be in the hands of corporate America? It needs to be ripped back out of corporate America. And why is it in corporate America's hands? Because of big government back during I believe it was World War II, where the government froze wages and told corporations they couldn't give wage increases, and you got to keep the hire on that you have. Real convoluted things about what companies couldn't do with their money during World War II, and corporations negotiated with the government and said, well, hey, if you let us purchase insurance, health insurance for our clients or our employees, we can give that to them as a reason to come work for us versus actually offering them more money. Government said,
believe it or not, I think I heard that on a serial on Glenn Beck. But
hold on. Here's the thing. Here's the thing, though. The thing is that, So the corporations go to the government and say, hey, can we have this? We want this. And oh, by the way, allow us to write this off on our taxes as if we're buying something for the employee for them to use so we can use it as a tax write-off. Well, hell's bells, man. Take it out of their hands, allow us to buy it like we buy car insurance, and allow us to write it off on our own taxes. What are we talking about here? This is common sense, and I didn't hear that from Glenn Beck. I think he took it. He took it from me.
Well, no, he had a serial that talked about how way back then. I don't know if it was turn of the or after the Civil War, or how far back it was.
No, I think it was. I think it was as recent as World War II.
Right. I mean, I thought it might be more recent, but I don't know. But he had a serial about it where he talked about how there was caps. Socialists want to put caps on the amount of money that you can earn, and they do that by attacking putting government policies on the companies for caps on the amount of money that they could pay people. So in order to compete for the workers, the companies got creative and said, well, if we can't pay them more, maybe we can give them free stuff. And so they were thinking of what they could give them. And one of the biggies was health insurance. What? And so that is how the health insurance for the employees was born.
Yeah, and think about it.
Spiraled out of control from there.
Right. Think about it. Big government. How else? Oh, yeah, it was World War II, post World War II. How else would big government be able to take over the one thing that they know they have to get a hold of? We have to get a hold of health insurance, and we have to own it, single payer health insurance, because if we, the government, can own that, we can then own the people in the sense that we are in charge of their lives, their health. And so what better way to do that than to finagle it, take it one step at a time. Let's get it into the hands of the corporations so that now instead of people buying it, the corporations get it and they negotiate with the employees with it. And then fast forward, we got Obama stealing it from the corporations, attempting to make it a single payer plan. I mean, it's an easy 1-2 step.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't feel easy when you're the victim of it like we are.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, it's like terrible.
Right.
I mean, I've been uninsured for years now. I mean, I'm a veteran and I could go to the VA. I kind of registered with them at some point, but I got a wife and a daughter, and we got to be careful. We got to be really careful. And it wouldn't make much difference if I went out and got insurance, because the deductible would be so high that it would be like being uninsured anyway.
Well, and then,
of course,
right, the deductibles this year, if you are a working person, the deductibles this year from one company that I was previous with, that just left in January, their deductibles went up to $3,000, $4,000 for a family. And the new company that I'm with now, their deductibles start at $4,000.
Yeah. Oh, that's nothing really. Like my dad, and I think myself included, because I'm self-employed. My dad's retired. I believe it was $7,000 deductible. And so that pretty much leaves out any medical procedure that's not like a big, giant, life-threatening, life-altering event, such as like cancer or whatnot. Even if you get like a broken leg, it would probably cost less than that. But so like everything's out of pocket except for major catastrophic events. But the problem is my monthly bill for insurance got all the way up to $700. And once it hit $700, I just made the decision that with a $700, this is what I was thinking. I could take the $700, put it in the bank, and I'd be much, much safer and better off medically,
Right.
because I could take that money and use it for medical expenses if they arise, as opposed to just sending it off to the ether with a $7,000 deductible, which, by the way, if you have a deductible, you're supposed to have that money like put away, $7,000, or in your case, $3,000 or $4,000, so that when a medical issue does arise, you at least got the deductible covered.
Well,
But
the deductibles every year, though. The deductibles every year. Every year you got to have $7,000.
Well, you're taking into consideration that you're actually using that much medical. You're not buying that much actual medical care.
Well, I'm just saying, if you had a bad couple, if you had a bad couple of years.
Oh yeah.
Well, say you had a bad December and a bad January.
Yeah, that would be pretty bad. No, but here's the worst part. If I have to save up $7,000 to save up or to have for a deductible, that's going to be almost impossible for a family that has to pay $700 a month for the actual payment. So it's like you almost have to save up for the deductible first and be uninsured during that time, and then go out and buy health insurance.
Well, and check,
it's ridiculous.
And check this out. I was involved in a big layoff in the past, and as soon as anybody that's ever been laid off or anybody that's ever been fired that had insurance through the company. See, this is the problem I'm talking about, folks. If you have insurance through your company, if you're laid off or fired, you get a letter in the mail from Cobra. It's insurance sold to you on the marketplace. The cost, $3,000 a month. Is that thousands of dollars?
Wait, what?
Yeah,
Wait
no, it's
a minute,
insanity.
That's how much it costs?
Yeah, it's insanity. It's insane.
No, anybody who pays for that is stupid.
Right. That's right. My mom works in the health industry, and I mentioned it to her, and she said, "Oh, no, do not do Cobra. You are better off just go to the ER and tell them you'll set up a payment plan. Do not do Cobra." I said, "Don't do it. It ain't physically possible. It couldn't do it." So yeah,
right. There's a difference between really hunkering down and sacrificing for your family and being a physical impossibility. There is a difference there.
Right, especially if you're laid off, collecting unemployment, or laid off or fired, or you certainly don't have thousands of dollars laying around to pick up health care. I mean, it's just absolutely.
Why would you for that? I mean, if your mom's right, go to the ER. You know, that I think that there's a very large population of people who are a part of the healthcare plan. It's like a system, if you will, where you don't have insurance, and then if anything happens, you go to the ER, and that's obviously if you absolutely need it. You know, This isn't like, oh, I got sniffles, I'm going to go to the ER. No. You break a leg, you show up at the ER, they're forced to treat you, and when they're done treating you and they send you the bill, you file for bankruptcy. And that's pretty much what our health industry is at this point.
Right. So the company that I used to work for would post, I was looking for it real fast. They would post how much that they were actually paying into my health care, and then my portion. My portion was about $115 a week, and their portion was much more than that. So if you've got that one employee times, millions of people at work getting it, there's a huge scam involved. There's just something really wrong.
Here's my government health care plan, and I'm dead serious about this. I think this would be the best one. It's a website that's modeled almost exactly on Angie's List.
Oh, yeah.
So it's the Angie's List of healthcare. Not only would it have a whatever insurance company that wants to be listed on there, but it would also have doctors and hospitals and all kinds of different facilities and clinics in there that you can search if you want. And in addition to that, you can rate them. And if you don't like the way that they're treating you, or anything, you can give them a bad rating as a consumer. And if they're doing great, you give them a good rating. And then people can search these different entities, these medical, these are all private, by the way. They could search them based on their rating. Right. And if they have a great rating, they're going to thrive and do awesome. And if they have a terrible rating, they're going to die out just like they should in a free market. And then the website should be owned and maintained at least, and created at least, I guess, temporarily as maybe a cabinet position in the federal government.
No. There's no such thing as temporarily. Nothing's ever temporary.
Okay, so the question is,
allow these companies to grow and to be independent. You will automatically have somebody like Angie's List come up with their own. Human beings just do that. They'll do it. I'll call it federalmedical.com.
Copyright Smith Radio. Don't you steal that from me.
There you go. All right, real quick. This is Trump's take on the RyanCare failure and what happened and how he felt about it.
I worked as a team player and would have loved to have seen it pass, but again, I think I was very clear, because I think there wasn't a speech I made, or very few, where I didn't mention that perhaps the best thing that could happen is exactly what happened today. We learned a lot about loyalty. We learned a lot about the vote-getting process. We learned a lot about some very arcane rules in, obviously, both the Senate and in the House. So it's been, certainly for me, it's been a very interesting experience. But in the end, I think it's going to be an experience that leads to an even better health care plan.
So did you hear him say, I kind of hoped it would go this way?
Yeah, that was the first thing. As soon as he said it, I was like, what? Because I've heard a sound bite from that actual, what you just played. I've heard pieces of that before.
Right.
But they left off the part that you included, which was that went exactly the way we hoped it to.
Right. And he said, we learned a lot.
They left that off.
And we learned a lot. We learned a lot about loyalty. I'm telling you, man.
I didn't hear that. I've heard that, but I didn't hear the part that it went his way.
Right. Right. So there's a woman, a reporter by the name of Tara Palmieri. She writes, she reports for, either like one of the MSM drive-by media outlets. And she says sources close to Trump say he's being advised to replace Reince Priebus and is open to possibilities. Healthcare was the last straw. I mean, I don't know who she is. I mean, she's a reporter, fake news, weird news. It was just out of the blue, so I had to put it in the show notes. I just could not. That's so obscure and so out. Why is Reince Priebus got to be outed?
Gosh, that's a whole nother show, right? We got to do a whole separate 3 hours for that.
Right.
And you know what? I talked to some of my fans. I do get into phone debates with some of my fans out there, some of my close, loyal fans. And we definitely have differing opinions on Reince Priebus. I've always thought he was an establishment mole and all that kind of stuff. And maybe, I don't know. There's people that say that the reason Reince is in the position that he's in is because Trump believes that you should keep your friends close and your enemies closer. There's all these weird theories on, because I don't think anybody is, there's no disillusions here. He's always been an establishment, right?
Right. As far as I've ever known, he was always able to be the glue of the establishment to hold everybody together.
Right, and then there's people that say, no, yeah, sure, he's establishment, but that's exactly why Trump got him, not to keep my enemies closer, but because he was going to be the glue that melds together the Trump movement with establishment conservatives and Republicans and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not buying it. I think that Reince was sent to go work for Trump. And here's how I feel that way. You understand that I look at a lot of different trees in order to come up with the conclusion that I'm looking at a forest. And here's the way I look at it. It's not like Trump went in search for a guy who would eventually become his chief of staff. What happened is Reince started busting his butt. And when I went to the Trump rally in Sharonville, Reince Priebus was there. And Trump started gushing about him, and he started talking about what Reince has been doing. And it sounded like he was trying to sell Reince to the crowd.
Right.
Like the crowd wouldn't normally accept Reince Priebus because he's kind of a cuck, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it sounds like he's trying to sell him. But then when he started telling us what he has done to gain his loyalty, it sounds like Reince is a very smart, clever guy who decided that he needs to go and get Trump's loyalty and his trust. And why would he go so far? And trust me, he went far. Trump explained to the crowd the lengths at which Reince went to impress Trump. Why would he do that? Well, maybe he was ordered by somebody who's got him, got Reince by the balls to go and get into Trump's inner circle. And Reince said, I can do that.
Right.
And he went and he did the hard work necessary to get into the inner circle. And now you see what has come of that. His number one secretary, assistant, or whoever it was, has been fired because of the stuff that she was doing at the White House.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm telling you, Reince is a mole. And here's another thing that friends of mine oppose my theory on that with, is that Trump is too smart to allow some cuck like Reince to get into the inner circle if he isn't legit. He's too smart for that.
Like to play.
And I'm like,
he knows people, and he's not going to let somebody play him.
Right, but I'll tell you what, man. I don't know how else to read it. I'm just saying what I'm seeing.
Well, maybe this mainstream media reporter, maybe she may know something we don't know. Only time will tell. Franklin Graham, if y'all know, very religious man. He wrote his feelings, if you will, out on Facebook, and apparently on Facebook, you can write as much as you want. It's not like Twitter where you only have so many characters. And just real quick, I just want to read. This is from a different angle. So I just want you folks to keep an open mind and see the paradigm that has been shifted from what healthcare used to be to what healthcare we talked about in World War II, how then it went to the corporations. And now today, how healthcare is teetering on the edge of being sucked up by the government and us just becoming another Canada, us becoming America, that shining city up on the hill, now becoming a Canada, becoming an Australia, becoming Europe, and just being awash with socialism. This is Franklin Graham, and this is what he put out on Facebook, and this is what he wrote. He says, this healthcare debate is all about greed and special interest. Well, I agree with that. We've just gone over that. The Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, was presented on a premise of lies. The American public was told, if you like your health care plan, you'll be able to keep your health care plan, period. If you like your doctor, you'll be able to keep your doctor, period. None of that was true. Why is the federal government even in healthcare business? If you want to know that government-run healthcare looks like, just visit the VA hospital or read what's been in the news about them. In my opinion, and this is Franklin Graham, in my opinion, the government needs to pull its fingers out of healthcare, except for possibly Medicare or Medicaid, and allow insurance companies to sell policies competitively across state lines unhindered. In our country's history, the church provided health care for the poor. Baptists, Methodists, Presbyterians, Catholics all had hospitals and still do in many places. The church needs to be the front and center. Why? Because Jesus Christ cared for the hurting. He made the blind to see, the lame to walk, the deaf to hear, cleansed the lepers, raised the dead, and preached the good news to the poor. Matthew 11:4-5. As Christians, we should follow his example. My grandfather gave the best years of his life as a Presbyterian missionary surgeon serving the poor in China. And when he returned to the U.S., he served as a doctor in Asheville, North Carolina, and he never turned anyone away because they couldn't pay. That's the paradigm I'm talking about.
That's a great article. Very great article. That was just posted on Facebook?
Yeah, he just posted it right up on Facebook. Said, here's what I'm thinking, folks.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. He nailed it on the head. I like that I actually forget, and I think most people forget, that the history, maybe even the history of the world, but definitely the history of the United States, is that the church did a lot of things that the government now does. And it doesn't seem to be a coincidence to me at all when you consider that Marxism requires the abolishment of religion, and it would make sense that they would want the government to do all the things that that churches do.
Okay, so look at this. Look at this angle. The churches are providing the health care. The government knows, the communists, they know they need to get a hold of that health care and rip it out of the churches. However, these Americans are really deep-rooted in Christianity, and it's going to be impossible to convince them to flip the script. It's just not going to happen. So World War II, an opportunity happens, an opportunity arises. Maybe corporations and the government were colluding together. It's very, very possible, and decided that, hey, this might be our best way of slipping healthcare away from churches and religion, slip it into the businesses so that middle class workers, just blue collared workers, wouldn't need to go to churches anymore. You go to work. You work your 6 days a week, 7 days. Man, you make your job your religion. And let me tell you, I know guys like that. Guys that work 6, 7 days a week, 5 days, as much as they can work. Blue collar workers. The more they can work, the more hours they can put in, the more they'll do. And come right out of the turn, right after World War II, the big boom with all the industry that was happening. I mean, who knows? Why not? It's a very, very plausible thing to take that one step, move it closer to the government.
Well, yeah, and church did a lot of stuff. If you really stop and think about it, look at just the little things. You know, they talk about all these government programs to help the poor. That is what the churches did. They're the ones that ran the soup kitchens, and they still do a lot of that stuff. It's just that it's either unnoticed or it's on a really small scale, and the main reason is because people don't even go to the church anymore for these kinds of assistance, this kind of assistance, because they know that the government program is available to them, and so they go through a government program. And the sad part of it is you never see the expense of that, whereas in a church, you got your parishioners show up to church, and they tithe 10% of their income gladly because of all the programs that they provide for the poor. And when the poor show up, the people that are volunteering at these soup kitchens and whatnot are their fellow parishioners. So there's a little bit of shame that goes along with having to take a handout, and rightfully so.
Yes.
There should be shame in that.
Benjamin Franklin said to get rid of poverty, make it as uncomfortable as possible.
Yeah, it's got to be uncomfortable in a lot of ways, one of which would be psychologically through shame. I think it should be a shameful thing that you can't provide for your family or whatnot. And that, let me tell you something, that shame is a big motivator. And that's why that it worked. It worked back then.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It worked very, very well. And then the flip side of we're talking about the healthcare debacle, this RyanCare that fell on its knees and didn't work out, didn't pan out, and the odds and ends on that. Talked about kind of from our perspective, Joe Pollack and Breitbart News saying that, you know, this will this will be a turning point for Trump, possibly a winning strategy that he's put in place. Franklin Graham saying that health care should go back to the churches where it originally was. And now you get John McCain. John McCain was in Brussels. You know what John McCain did? John McCain did what he does because he's a Democrat. I mean, he's a Republican and Democrat in Republican clothing. This comes from Constitution.com, by the way. Republican Senator John McCain revealed he hasn't met with Donald Trump in person since he took the office. And he urged Trump to reach out to his opponents, Democratic and otherwise, a la Ronald Reagan, if he wants to repeal Obamacare. Do some outreach. Get to know some of these Democratic leaders, he said. You can find common ground. Well, they're Democrat leaders, not Democratic. They're Democrat leaders. And McCain is doing what all the failed Republicans have done, and the ones we've all attempted to vote out of office. The reason why Trump was voted in, we don't want no suckers to reach across the aisle. We won. We won. We don't have to reach across the aisle to get you to come to us. You need to come to us and reach towards us. We're the winners. We don't compromise. I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, when they win, they always tell us that we have to reach across the aisle to the winners, but it's never the other way around. You know what it is? It's a heads I win, tails you lose.
Right. That's exactly what it is. Yep. That's exactly what it was. Twitchy put up on Twitter, somebody was at a rally with Nancy Pelosi, and as soon as Nancy Pelosi heard the news that RyanCare failed, she was out on the lawn or something. She took her shoes off, her heels off, and literally got everybody to jump, saying, let's all jump for joy that we saved Obamacare. And so they all jumped for joy.
They're crazy. Do you believe that?
Yeah.
There's this, the Democrats believe this crazy idea that, and I believe it might have been Jack Posobiec who said that D.C. works on wins and losses, and there's this old notion that's always been in play where when there's a legislative loss, like similar to what you saw with this the Obamacare repeal, that this is the end-all be-all. It was the Super Bowl. Super Bowl's over. Time to move on, and there's no looking back, and you don't look back. And I think I don't think that those rules apply anymore. Do you think that because RyanCare didn't go through or the repeal didn't go through, that this isn't going to be something that's going to be voted on possibly soon?
Well, I honestly believe that because Trump is not a politician, if Trump was the quintessential politician or if he was the Mitt Romney, because, even if Mitt Romney got elected, this wouldn't have gone through anyways. But he's not going to say, okay, that's the Super Bowl, it's over. He's the kind of man that says, I made that promise. And he's the kind of guy, as a business-oriented individual, okay, we lost the permit on that one. Okay, we didn't have this, and this, and they canceled that permit. Okay, explain to me what we need to do to reinstate that permit, or do we file for a new permit? Building codes, paperwork, red tape. He knows it's there, and he's savvy enough to know you've got to keep hacking away at that what is now turning out to be a 1,000-year-old redwood tree, Obamacare. You got to start hacking away. And as a successful businessman, that's what you do. And you don't stop hacking till it falls down. I honestly believe that Trump will continue to hack away at this, maybe slowly, maybe quickly, but he will continue to go at this tooth and nail until it gets. He's going to do everything like that, tooth and nail, till it gets done.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about. I guess an analogy I could think of would be like, I was in New York City back in '99. It was 2 years before 9/11, and I never seen this before in any other city. But there are highways that run underneath skyscrapers, and because the skyscrapers are cantilevered over the highway, Now, if you look at the way it's built, clearly the highway was there first.
Right.
Because you don't build a skyscraper like that so that you can one day build a road under it. And so I'm like, now how would that have happened? I guarantee you somebody was like, I really want to build a skyscraper. I really want it to be this big, but can we move the highway? And of course, they probably put in for it. Like, can we reroute this or redirect it? Or can we just close this road down? And it probably goes through and they say, heck no, this road's staying there. We're not going to do anything about it. So to get around that, they build up a few stories until you're high enough to be above traffic. And then you build out over the road. And it really is. It's amazing to see these skyscrapers hanging over the top of a highway. It's nuts. But so right now it would be like this Obamacare failure was just losing the permit to move the highway.
Right. And when they said, yeah, you could move the highway if you want, but it's going to cost more than your entire project.
Right.
So you let me know. We do take check. We will have to let that clear first.
All right. So they end up just building up and they build the building that they wanted to build. It's just the bottom 5 stories are just going to be different so that they can accommodate for the road.
Right. You could do that in engineering projects, re-engineer it, redo it fairly inexpensively, considering moving an entire, I don't know how many lanes. If you're talking about LA, you could be talking about a 12-lane freeway. But yeah, that's amazing.
I mean, I don't remember how many lanes it was, but the building only partially covered the road. It was like, imagine cantilevering the building over the top of the road. So instead of the walls of the building going straight down and landing on the road,
right,
it goes straight down until it's about 20 feet above the road, or maybe 30 feet, I don't know. And then it goes back in. It like cuts in. It almost looks like the building may have been there, and they chopped a corner of it out so that they could fit the road in. But obviously, that's not how it would have been done. Yeah, it's crazy.
That's nuts. So yeah, no, absolutely. I know what it's like in business. I've been in business before. I know the struggles that business people have just to stay legit. The things that you have to do to stay legit, you have to have an unwavering resolve that it will happen. You've got to be obsessed to the point that this will happen. Come hell or high water, whatever it takes, it's going to be done. And Donald Trump is that guy. It's something we used to say, burn the ships, which comes from the Greek mythology story that just very quickly, one small island was being intimidated by a big giant continent, and the small island eventually said, hey, gather all your men, all our supplies, we're going to go sail there, and we're going to go at them offensively, and we're going to go at them, we're going to go there first. They get to the beaches, the general orders everybody out of the boats, and then he orders his men to burn the boats, and he tells all the men, if you want to make it back, if you want to see your wives and your children again, you better win this war. That's the kind of resolve that Donald J. Trump has to. I'm somewhat speculating, but he has to have that kind of resolve to be a billionaire. You don't just wake up one day a billionaire. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, I love that story because there's so much truth to that. You know, You've got to be 100% dedicated to your mission. If you want, especially if it's a tough mission, if you want to ensure success of a really tough mission, that's what you do. You burn those ships down, and I'm telling you, man, it's a great. I'm not sure what he would be doing to do that, but definitely 100%.
Like right now, his entire campaign was initially, okay, I'm running for office. I have burnt the ship. It has been burnt. We are not turning around. This is all in. We will win. We will do whatever it takes to win, even if NBC coincidentally slips an audio tape legally or illegally, according to California law, to the Washington Compost saying that, jokingly, I like to grab posse. Anywho, you got to overcome those things. Those obstacles have to be overcome. You have to overcome those things. And if you don't have a resolve like Donald Trump has, you'll never overcome him. We're talking about the health care, the RyanCare that failed. And Obama, I am personally saying that Donald J. Trump, as a billionaire businessman, has resolve unlike any political figure, any politician that you know of. A successful businessman has more resolve. I promise you, because politicians want to reach across the aisle. All right, I didn't win. Okay. All right, Chuck you Schumer, what's it going to take for me to win? How about I help you win, you help me win? That's politicians. I mean, it's not cheating, but it's slimy and it's dirty. That's why they call it the swamp.
It goes against what being a politician in America is supposed to be about. You're supposed to serve the people. They call it a service,
right?
And it's almost tongue-in-cheek because nobody really believes that's what they're really doing up there. But you're supposed to be serving. You're supposed to be serving the people that elected you, and you're supposed to be their voice. You're not supposed to be your voice. You're supposed to be their voice. Right. And they've gotten away from that, and all of them have. And that's what you're saying. Chuck Schumer, works with Republicans to make sure that they retain power or whatnot.
Right.
And you got Trump, who's finally saying, I'm going to do it the way it's supposed to be done. And I dare you to challenge me on that. I dare you to oppose me on it, because I'll just tell the people what's going on, and you're going to lose.
Right.
And he's right. And it took somebody like Trump to realize that was going to work, because the politicians, they think that people are stupid. They think they have to lie to the people because the truth isn't going to work for them. They really believe that. They think that the truth is going to be so it's going to cause upheaval and all this kind of stuff, and it's going to cause them to lose, and then nobody wants to hear the truth. And it turns out that we're all hungry for the truth.
Right.
I mean, there's a reason why new media is gaining traction. Smith Radio and every person that we reference here on this show, they're all blowing up. They're all getting a following, and soon we're gonna have commercials. And there's people, the guy that does our audio in the beginning of the show, that introduces the show. I mean, we don't pay him anything. He volunteered his work to us, and it's because people they hear what we're trying to do, and they support it. They want to support it. They want to be involved. They're not trying to make a buck. It's just like Bill Mitchell has his jingle at the beginning of the show. He didn't pay for that.
Right.
Some guy that makes music said, I really want to help out. And so, yeah, I mean, they're not doing that for mainstream media. Everybody hates them because they're lying to the people, and that needs to stop.
No, absolutely. And this whole lying, the politicians lie, and we've seen now in this past election cycle, the politicians and the mainstream media all in cahoots with each other, whether it be Russiagate or whether it be protecting Hillary Clinton at all cost, a crooked Hillary's health, whatever it takes by hook or by crook. The people don't know what's good for them. We know better. And that brings us to our next topic that was a hot button this week, which is just absolute insanity. And when are the majority, not everybody's going to wake up, but the majority of people need to come and wake up and understand this British terror attack was just that. It was a terrorist attack claimed by ISIS, saying that we sent, that's how we do this. You can now go on YouTube and Twitter and find videos, and YouTube's making money off this, by the way, find videos that teach you how to do a jihad with vehicles, cars, trucks, buses, knives, what to do, how to obtain them, to wreak havoc and cause terror. Because Al-Qaeda, Islam, ISIS, whoever you want to call, all of them, under the umbrella of Islam, want nothing more than to wreak havoc on society whether it be moral or immoral. I'm not here to judge you. You're not married. You're living with your girlfriend and you have a baby. I'm not here to judge you on that. That's not my job, is to judge. But apparently in Islam, it's the right of the Islamists to judge everyone around them. And if you are not doing what you're supposed to do, Allah has commanded you to cut their head off. So the reason why they hate the West so much is because of all the things that we do, just our lives, just who we are. You can't get rid of that. You can't stop them from hating us for who we are. That's who we are. And they're incompatible with any other religion anywhere in the world. They're incompatible and they want this. So this lone terrorist in Britain takes a car, it's got some knives, starts running people down, mowing people over, jumps out of the car, and apparently stabs to death a police officer who doesn't have a gun. In the melee, in the scheme of things, after the smoke had blown over, it came to find out that there was an American. His name's Kurt Cochran. Him and his wife were on their 25th year anniversary. They were touring around Europe. That was their present that they gave themselves for their 25th anniversary. They were on the last leg of that trip through Europe, coming back to America. And lo and behold, this ISIS Islamic terrorist does a terrorist act, runs him and his wife over. Both go to the hospital. Husband's dead. She's in critical condition. For the rest of her God-given life, every year, minimum once a year, when the anniversary comes up and her husband is still dead, she will still be scarred with that. Damn him. People like that go to hell. People like that go to bad places. To do something so heinous towards somebody who wanted nothing more than to enjoy life with someone they found here. I've got no sympathy for it. Any thoughts on that?
I'm just hoping that is the straw that breaks the camel's back with regards to Great Britain doing something about what pretty much amounts to a horrendous immigration policy.
Well, and the mayor of London, who's the first Muslim, Islam Muslim elected to a mayoralship, is pretty much saying, well, this is what happens in a big city. Just kind of happens. And then that's what happens. That's what happens when you elect a Muslim as a mayor. Right.
This is what happens. That you normalize jihad and terrorism in your city, and he doesn't know, as far as he knows, when he's in a city that has Muslims and infidels, that of course there's going to be mass murders, because that's what they do. And I'm not saying this, I'm not speaking on behalf of Islam. I'm telling you what he's probably thinking. He's got to be thinking this.
Yeah, he knows that, well, we got these infidels, and, I've got my guys, and they follow the Quran like good soldiers, and,
It's like saying, look, if you've got a pen, a pen, like a play pen, but a big one, like a pig pen.
Pigs.
And it's full of sheep, and it's full of wolves, but lots of wolves, lots of sheep. You're gonna wake up in the morning, and there's gonna be blood all over the place every once in a while. Right. I'm not saying it's gonna happen every day, but I'm just saying that when you put wolves and sheep together, sheep, it's gonna happen, and you're just gonna have to get used to it, because that's what we have here. We have a pen full of those sheep and wolves, and that's what we're going to have to deal with from now on. And you're going to have to get used to it. You understand?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. This also, if you don't subscribe to Constitution.com, I highly suggest you do. They don't send spam stuff, but they do send emails every once in a while with great articles. And this was sent to me this morning by Constitution.com, and I wanted to throw it in there. This is their take on what CNN did and the political correctness, and this is their take on it. The antiquated ethos of political correctness prevented the media from stating the obvious in the wake of the terror attack in Great Britain. CNN went so far as to label the attack a firearms incident, even though the attacker used a vehicle and a knife to carry out the dastardly actions. Now, only one day later, obviously this is the next day, the writing on the wall has become completely legible thanks to an admission from international terror syndicate ISIS, and 8 arrests have been conducted in the probe since. So yeah, only because ISIS claimed that was them did CNN have to do an about face. What the?
Well, yeah, they should learn how to censor Muslims. Then they could also not have to report on that. Yeah, just censor them. If they say that they're claiming responsibility for it, just ignore them, right?
No, exactly.
And Brian, let me tell you something. Them calling it firearms. All right, what are arms? Arms are anything you could use as a weapon.
Right.
Well, clearly he used the vehicle as a weapon. And what else did he call it? Firearms?
Yeah, firearms.
Brian, come on. You and I both know that an internal combustion engine does, in fact, have fire.
You know what? You're making sense. I think CNN really is that far ahead. I did not.
Hey, no, you know what? That's called taking it ridiculously literally. And don't they do that? They say wiretapping. Oh, what are you saying wiretapping? You have no evidence of such claims. This is an evidence-free claim of this wiretapping. What wires are you talking about? And how did you tap into it? What physical technique was used when you took your physical copper wires and tapped into whatever it is that you said you were tapping into? So they can get all literal that way. Certainly they must be talking about using an internal combustion engine, which has fire in it, as a firearm.
Right. Maybe it would explode and shoot things out the tailpipe of sorts. Not quite sure about that, but Tucker Carlson was pretty much on this and had Nigel Farage on his show. He also had the great, if you don't follow her name's Katie Hopkins. She's absolutely incredible. She's from Great Britain. And I've got 2 sound bites on that. This first one is Katie. Listen to her, what she has to say. She lives in England, and she's a conservative like us. Nationalists. We're not conservatives anymore, Carrie. We are nationalists. We are those that wish a sovereign nation. And so she, and this is what she had to say on Tucker's show about the situation at Ground Zero in England.
I really believe that all we are is a nation of ghettos. I can go to the west of London and I'll find the Afghanis. I'll go to the east of London, I'll find the Eritreans. They don't speak to the Somalis, who don't speak to the Syrians. All that conflict, all that war, all that tension, that didn't get left behind. They just brought it here. They are enclaves of individuals here in the city. I think liberals here actually think multiculturalism means we all die together, and that's not a view I support.
She is talking about the Middle Eastern problems being copied, mirror imaged in England.
Yeah, gosh, that's a big problem. Well, she said we all die together. What does she mean by we all? Clearly, she's not talking about the Muslims.
Oh, she's
Muslims
talking.
Aren't going to.
She's.
I mean, maybe some of the ones that strap a bomb vest to themselves, that he or she would die. But when everybody is done slaughtering in England, the only people that'll be left will be Middle Easterners.
Well, but she's also talking about. She's talking about the warring factions that are in the Middle East are now warring in England together. So whether the good Muslims kill the bad Muslims, which kill the Anglo-Saxons that kill whoever's there to get killed.
Yeah, so I didn't realize that she was talking about them fighting each other. But yeah, if that's the case, that's even worse than I thought, because not only are you going to die from a direct attack on you because of the fact that you're an infidel, but you're also going to die in the crossfire between two different races of Muslims, I guess. I don't know how that really works. The Sunnis, the Shias, and all that crazy stuff. But apparently they fight each other too?
Yeah, they war against each other. They kill each other, and it's a weird situation. If it's just them imagine a big stadium, and it's just the Sunni, the Shia, the different fractions of Islam in the stadium together, and that's all, just them. They will war together. However, if somebody opens the door to the stadium and says, hey, look at those whiteys over there, or look at those Christians, look at those Jews, instantly they band together to remove the Jews and the Christians, and when they're all dead, they go back to fighting each other again.
Yeah, this is the quintessential definition of barbarism, right? I mean, just
absolutely, they have not left.
They're not civilized,
right? They have not left the I don't know what era that was, barbarism era, but no, they have not left it. It is still there, ingrained in them.
The barbarians were the ones that were outside of Rome, that were always constantly doing terrorist attacks on Rome. And they were considered less civilized than your average Roman. And eventually they took it over.
Well, and that's what they did with the founding fathers of America. The Barbary pirates. They were Muslim. They were Islam. And they did whatever they had to do to get whatever they wanted. Yeah. So, So here's Nigel Farage on what's going on in Britain with this terrorist attack.
Inevitable byproduct of mass immigration. He joins us now from London. Nigel Farage, thanks for coming on. So it seems clear from this vantage that this is part of something much larger, and it's pretty clear what it is. I wonder if that's as clear to the leaders of the political parties in Great Britain.
Well, I remember about 5 years ago, I said that we had a fifth column living inside our own nation. It was the first time in our history that we had people living amongst us that wanted to destroy our values and actually even wanted to kill us. And I remember the absolute wave of condemnation that I came in for. What I've seen today are a lot of people, the great and the good of this country, the people that did irresponsibly open the doors, the people that refused to accept that within some parts of Islam there was a growing problem, and they're all saying how awful and appalling it is. And I do actually think that the moment has come for us to actually point the blame. You know, what these politicians have done in the space of just 15 years may well affect the way we live in this country for the next 100 years.
That's scary. That's scary.
I think he's understating it, the 100 years thing. I mean, you're talking probably 1,000 years. That's not an exaggeration. I mean, that's just the way it's going to be forever.
Well, think about trying to tell the government to stop to that 1% tax that they taxed us in the city for the new stadium, and then they'll give it. Yeah, get that undone. That's like undoing this.
And it'll take us 1,000 years to pay it off.
Right. Right. So it is official. The Westminster Killer was Muslim convert. He lived. He was there, born in Westminster in England, and he converted to Islam. However, he lived in several very extremist hotspots. So, radicalized by the different areas that he lived in. Why not this? Why not that? Do this, do that. And something else that popped up on the radar. I got this from Paul Joseph Watson, who tweeted it out, who then Cernovich retweeted. Same day in Belgium, within 24 hours in Belgium, terrorist of North African descent with car full of weapons tries to mow people in a busy shopping area. The Sun.uk called it a French-Tunisian terrorist. Apparently he was stopped before he could do damage, but they're calling it a copycat. I don't think it's a copycat. It's their mission.
Well, yeah, copycat. That is kind of a misnomer. I saw that, and somebody replied to it, and it said they put a meme on it. I don't know if you saw this. It was a cartoon of a guy looking like kind of like in a workplace environment with a big old giant counter. And the label on the counter said "Days Without Islamic Terror," and it had 4 digits, 0000.
Oh, hell's bells.
Yeah, which is kind of a joke. For those of you that don't work in that kind of environment, there's always that the safety board that has days without a casualty or incident or whatever, a safety violation or whatnot, and you try to get that to as many days as you can. And so sometimes when a safety violation does happen or somebody actually gets hurt or whatever, they reset it back to 0, and then you have to count up again. But in this case, they were counting days since last terrorist attack, and it was at 0. So apparently it gets reset to 0 every day.
Apparently, because if there's anywhere around the world at any given time, you can find a situation where Islam is wreaking havoc and terror on innocent people. And check this out. Bill Maher on his show on HBO, he's not a conservative constitutionalist. He's the opposite of what we are as nationalists. However, he's a very intelligent individual, and sometimes because of his intelligence, he falls on the correct side. He had a woman by the name of Louise Mensch and the infamous Chris Hayes. Chris Hayes, I call him the infamous because he's infamous. He's so famous that he's infamous. So he had them on his show as they attempted to say that it's not Islam's fault. It's the Christians that can't live with the Muslims.
I've asked this question before. If a European country sometime in the future became 51% Muslim, would it be the same country? Would it have the same values, the same laws? Would laws change?
Would you ask that question about Jews?
I will.
Would you ask that question about Catholics?
I will ask that question. And the answer is it wouldn't change because they're already the majority. But Muslims are not. If you're telling me that if a European country became 51% Muslim, it would basically be the same country you grew up in?
The problem would not be Islam. It would be homogeneity. That you'd be homogenous. You're talking about a thing where everybody is one faith group. Britain
but I'm
is
talking
diverse.
about our fundamental principles like equality of women, separation of religion and state, respect for minorities, rule of law, as opposed to religious rule.
Do you know about the Westboro Baptist Church? There are a whole bunch of fundamentalists.
Again, this false equivalency.
It's not a false
Matt,
equivalency.
please.
I'm going to hurt your reputation by helping you.
I'm from Kansas.
I'm from Kansas. I know what that is.
Oh my God.
We have to call things as they are. And there are a lot there are a lot of moderate Muslims who know that Islam is in a fight for the idea that you can have. Let me finish. That you can have a civilization where you have religious pluralism. They themselves, those Muslims, don't believe in that religious pluralism.
So, Matt, will you tell me this?
Those extremists.
Can you explain to me the structure of the government of Indonesia?
I can't.
Okay. Do you know that Indonesia is the largest Muslim country in the world?
I've read that.
We do.
Yeah. So, But then, so if you're telling me you don't know anything about the way that the largest Muslim country in the world operates.
I do. I could give you statistics about Indonesia. I could tell you that in Indonesia, if you want to be a woman policeman or a woman military person, you have to undergo the 2-finger test, where they tell if you're a virgin.
Right, but that's Indonesia's problem. It's not Britain's problem.
That answers
because we don't have a religious state.
That we're not completely crazy. That assimilation is an issue.
There are different types of Islam.
But then extend that argument. Wait, can I extend that argument?
I'm sick. I got to go take care of my cold. Thank you very much, everybody.
Do you hear the mental gymnastics there towards the end? Chris Hayes with, do you know how the government of Indonesia works? Well, then you don't know anything.
I'm not sure.
You don't know anything about Islam then.
Yeah, that's kind of I don't know where he's coming. Like, what was he trying to prove with that statement? Seems kind of silly.
I think he was trying to say, well, the government of Indonesia works well. So what's your problem?
Yeah, because there's not very many Christians there, if any at all.
Right.
I mean, that's the whole thing about the religion of peace. It's very peaceful as long as you become Muslim. You have to become Muslim, or else it's not very peaceful at all.
Right.
If everybody becomes Muslim, then I believe them. I believe them. If they create a question to me and say, okay, Kerry, if you become Muslim, or if everybody becomes Muslim, will we be peaceful or not? I believe them when they say that they're going to be peaceful. I believe that. But I don't want to become a Muslim.
No.
And what if somebody else doesn't?
Right. But there's ways, though, Kerry, you don't understand. There's ways, there's rules in the the Islamic religion, which owns the government, and the government perpetuates the religion of Islam, that if you don't want to become Islamic or study Islam, you have two other choices. You can either pay for protection, you pay in homage, you give them money, and you pretty much are a second servant to them, or you could die. So
I choose B. Can I choose B? I mean, that goes against the right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. I mean,
right.
I'm telling you right now, Islam, as I see it practiced in a majority of the world, is extremely incompatible, even more incompatible with the Native American hunter-gatherer societies, which everybody freaks out about and calls and pulls the genocide card every single time we talk about the settling of the New World, the North and South America, that you guys genocide the indigenous people. Well, in a hunter-gatherer society is incompatible with the European society of, the farming culture and all that kind of stuff. But I think it's even less compatible, American culture in particular, with the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and equality and religious tolerance and all this kind of stuff, completely incompatible with Sharia law. 100%.
Right.
So incompatible that war is not just inevitable, it's guaranteed.
Right. And just to kind of spread the icing on the cake on that one with the hunter-gatherer, the Native American Indians that wised up and saw how much easier of a life you could have if you lived like we live. You build a house, you have some land, it's yours, you own it, you farm it. A lot of them became farmers, and a lot of them realized that is a great way to live. And we didn't want them to change their religion. Not by no means. And Andrew Jackson was sent on by the government because warring factions of the Indians would not leave white settlers and their own people alone. They killed white settlers and they killed their own Indians who decided that they were going to hang out with Whitey.
Right. Well, and here's the thing. I can put myself in their shoes and understand why they feel that they are right, meaning the European settlers, and that culture, and why they thought that they were wrong. I totally get it. But at the end of the day, when you got two different people who are incompatible because of their cultures are incompatible, that both feel that they're right, you will go to war, and at the end of the day, whoever wins the war gets to keep their culture, and whoever loses the war has a choice. They could either assume the culture of the winner, or they just die in battle, is what it ends up happening.
Right.
And so that's what's going to end up happening between Islam and, I don't know, American culture. Is that what you would call it? I mean,
they're calling it the Western. They're calling it Western.
Western. Okay.
Western.
Yeah,
culture.
because I agree with that, because the Western culture of Europe has actually kind of molded itself a lot more into American culture than before the Constitution was written. Like, you look at England, they have a king and a queen and all that kind of stuff. but it's not really a monarchy because the monarch doesn't really run it anymore. It's more of your the parliament and all that kind of stuff. So it resembles a lot more of a representative government than before. So yeah, I agree with that 100%. And they also have land ownership and all that kind of stuff.
Right. The differences that I'm seeing though with Native American Indian and white settlers, the differences were their cultural habits in the sense of one owned land and one did not own land. Owning land is more successful, easier lifestyle, more independent. You wind up becoming more free. The Indians like to be free as well. So neither one of us were trying to impede on each other's freedom per se. Whereas Islam is impeding on everyone's freedom. Everyone's freedom. You must, if you are a woman, you must become a servant, slave to the man. You must. You have to. That's what it is written in the Quran, and so it shall be. When we talk about peaceful Islam and radical Islam, somebody sent me this video that I watched, but I've got the audio for you. It's a little over 2 minutes long, but there's a man that looked like one is it's a big Islamic area, might even be in a mosque. But there's one man up on stage, and he's speaking to everybody. And then there's a panel of 3 older Muslim men sitting off to the side, and they're asking the speaker certain questions about Islam. And then the speaker preaches out to the entire crowd of hundreds and hundreds of Muslims, Islam, and asks them questions. And in this question, he differentiates between what radical means and what peaceful means, and has a participation with the crowd. He asks them questions and they participate back and forth. So listen to him, and he'll even mention it when they react, their reaction, whether it be all, whether it be some, whether it be none. And I'll kind of orchestrate it if it doesn't come off right because I saw the video. But he's fielding a question about radical Islam versus peaceful Islam. Who is radical and who's peaceful? What does that mean?
Could I give a comment regarding this topic? What is the media going to say now? Every time we have a conference, every time we invite a speaker, they always can come with the same accusations. This speaker supports death penalty for homosexuals. This speaker supports death penalty for this crime or that. He is homophobic. They subjugate women, etc., etc. These are general views that every Muslim actually has. Every Muslim believes in these things. So I will ask you, everyone in the room, how many of you are normal Muslims? You're not extremists, you're not radical, just normal Sunni Muslims. Please raise your hands.
Everyone raised their hand.
Everybody, mashallah, subhanallah.
Everyone raised their hand, in the whole room, and he praises them by saying Allah is greater.
Okay, take down your hands again. How many of you agree that men and women should sit separate? Please raise your hands. Everyone agree. Allahu Akbar. Next question. How many of you agree that the punishments described in the Quran and the Sunnah, death penalty for homosexuals, whether it is stoning for adultery, whatever it is, if it is from Allah and His Messenger, that is the best punishment ever possible for humankind. And that is what we should apply in the world. Who agrees with that?
Everyone raise their hand. Everyone.
Allahu Akbar. Are you all radical extremists?
They say no, we are not radical extremists.
SubhanAllah. So all of you are saying that you are common Muslims. Are you like that? Please raise your hand if you like this extreme Islam, that sect or anything like that.
Nobody raised their hand at all.
No one. Allahu Akbar. How many of you just go to this normal Sunni mosque? Please raise your hands. Allahu Akbar. Whether it is stoning for adultery, whatever it is, if it is from Allah and His Messenger, that is the best punishment ever possible for humankind. And that is what we should apply in the world. Who agrees with that? These are general views that every Muslim actually has. Every Muslim believes in these things. Takbir! Takbir! Takbir!
And so he has gotten an entire crowd to realize that obeying Sharia law, obeying the Quran, is normal and not radical, which something Carrie and I talked about, that the radical ones are the ones who aren't following the law. The normal, the conservative ones, the normal ones, they follow the law. They might not carry it out. They might not stone their wife, but they agree in a public sphere. They agree that the Quran and the rules and the laws of the Quran should be followed.
Well, I would certainly think that let's say that your wife cheats on you, and maybe it's not up to you to go ahead and stone her, but maybe a jury convicts her of cheating on you, and they sentence her to death. It sounds to me, based on the video you just played, that they would not only accept that as, personally accepting it as well, it is what it is. They would go so far as to say that is the best possible punishment, which I thought was very interesting that they used those words.
Right.
The best possible punishment. It's the best. Did you get a good settlement, or did you get a good ruling? Was it good? No, it wasn't just good. It was the best.
Oh, so what was it? So everything worked out. Oh, it worked out the best. Yeah, she got stoned all right.
You mean she smoked marijuana?
No, man, she's dead. We got the best outcome.
They gave her so much marijuana that they killed her?
No, we all got a bunch of rocks, chased her down.
Oh, jeez. Oh, my God.
I mean, we laugh at this, chuckle at it because it's insanity. It's absolutely insane that these governments run by Sharia law that adhere to Islam. I mean, it's not hard to go see it on the internet now. Technology is so that you can find this anywhere. And I keep saying Netflix has got their thing on there, exposing of Saudi Arabia. It's just unbelievable the way that human beings are treated. The fear. Because you can't take anything from anybody except their life. That is the most fearful thing to take from them. God put that in us, to fear to not die, which helps us to be successful and be plentiful and fruitful. To have that stolen from us is their leverage and their fear that they put in people. That's all they've got. So these people live in a world of fear that if they don't bow down when the bell rings 5 times a day and face Mecca, that they'll face the sword. The sword will come down and chop their head. If you're gay, if you cheat, if you go against it, you're dead. You're dead. It just is. And they do it to kids.
Well, Brian, are you an advocate of adultery? Is that what the problem here is? Well, I understand that adultery is a really, really bad thing. And it's a bad thing in Christianity, too. I mean,
however,
this is something that you should definitely be
right, but
begging for forgiveness for.
But in Christianity, God makes the judgment. God will judge. Don't you judge lest ye be judged. God's the one that judges you. In Islam, you got the people judging each other. Now we got problems.
It ends up being almost mob rule, But I'll take their word. I'll believe that they're not going to do something that isn't exactly described in the Quran. So, for instance, it wouldn't necessarily be mob rule where they would say, we don't like this guy, let's round him up and chop his head off. It would be something that's specifically written in the Quran that if they violate, they get their head chopped off. And once they determine that that's happened, that yes, we must chop their head off.
There was
Praise be to Allah, blah, blah, blah.
All right, there was a video that I saw where the mob rule the woman was accused of throwing the Quran on the ground or doing something, abusing the Quran in some way. And she was trying to get it. She got out of her house and she was trying to get away. People started screaming more and more. And some guys actually helped her up on the roof of this hut. And she slipped and fell back down. Anyways, long story short, it was a long video. And they chased her down and she was stoned to death and she died. The police were on the scene. And the police investigated it, and then it showed on the screen that the court system got involved to find out if she did or didn't do it. There were no arrests, and they come to find out that they believed that she may not have done it, but there were no arrests, and we couldn't really find the people who did it. So. Maybe next time the mobs should not rule so much.
Well, they should just be a little bit more careful next time. How about that one?
Right, a little bit more careful. And the last thing I'm going to talk about the Muslim, the terrorism. The last thing that I've got for this, there's a guy by the name of Mossab Hassan Youssef, and you might recognize that last name as Youssef because he's the son of the Hamas religious leader, wreaking havoc and terrorism. And ironically, he was invited to speak at the Jewish Post conference, which kind of makes you scratch your head. But this is just a couple minutes long. This is him coming out, what had happened to him, his paradigm shift, and him screaming at the top of his lungs to anybody who will listen what Islam is, Hamas, where it's coming from, and you cannot be a fool, and you can't fool yourselves into believing that it's anything other than that, and it's a major problem.
Very much for having me. It's a great privilege. The Jerusalem Post annual conference. The first time I got to know about the newspaper was in prison about 20 years ago. First, I wanted to learn English, and this is why I started to read the Jerusalem Post. But eventually, it became my window towards the Jewish world and towards the Western world as well. 16 months in Israeli prison, reading almost every day. So I have some connection to the Jerusalem Post somehow. I don't know where to start, but you can use your imagination of the son of a top Hamas leader. And what in the world is he doing at the Jerusalem Post annual conference? They gave me a tag. I don't wear it right now, but they had on it the son of Hamas. And I went through security all the way to the backstage. You gotta trust them, guys. Two guys working on the top of a very high building. One Jewish and the other guy is an Arab. The Jewish guy opened his lunch and there was a shawarma. And he said, "Enough shawarma. If tomorrow my sandwich is going to be shawarma, I will jump and kill myself." the Palestinian guy or the Arab guy opened and was falafel. And he said, no more falafel. If tomorrow falafel, I'll jump, kill myself. That's it. Next day, the Jewish guy opened this sandwich, and it was shawarma. He threw it on the side, came very fast, jumped, killed himself. The Palestinian opened, and it was falafel, and he was very furious. And he said, I said, enough falafel. He threw it, he jumped, killed himself. At their funerals, the Jewish wife was crying very hard, saying, I don't know what's his problem. If he told me, I would have changed it to something else. The Arab wife was crying bitterly and saying, I don't know what's his problem. I don't know what's his problem. He makes his own sandwiches.
Isn't that the point? Isn't that the point of all of this? The insanity.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, sorry. The insanity that is Islam.
Do you think that he killed himself because of his wife? I'm trying to figure out. The punchline's a little ambiguous to me.
Oh, he said the Muslim guy jumped and killed himself because the sandwich was again and again. The wife said,
"Oh, yeah, I heard that."
Oh,
yeah.
But the wife said, "I don't know why he did that. He makes his own sandwiches."
Right. I guess what are they saying? They're suicidal, is what they're saying.
Yes. Yes. They were just
suicidal and insane.
Right. And that
you don't have to make your own sandwich to kill yourself. You could have just jumped off the building right there.
Right. No, exactly. And life to them is, when I say worthless, life is not worth. We put a high value in the Western world. We put a high value on life itself, the preciousness of life, and to preserve it and to respect other people. And you don't see westernized people walking around the streets swinging machetes. It just doesn't happen normally.
Yeah, an argument can be made that Westerners, Christians, and I guess Jews too, put an infinite amount of value on life. There's no amount of money that you could spend to justify killing somebody or anything like that. And so that seems very, very different in Islam.
Right. And when they in their religion say that, if you do this, this, and this, well, that you die. Well, then you die. And even to the point to where in order to win the world, to conquer and dominate the world, sometimes, we got to kill ourselves or other people. I mean, it just happens, man. Everybody's got to die. It just depends on when. So for people like that,
you got to break eggs if you're going to make an omelet, right?
Right. And so for people like that, when we saw that in World War II with the kamikazes and the Japanese, we didn't understand that. That didn't make any sense. And even the Japanese started to rebel against that, the fighter pilots, so that the commanders would actually rig the gear landing, rig it up so that it would fall off when they took off. And they were loaded with fuel, so they were going to blow up anyways. If they attempted to land. But no, the whole thing is that how do you fight an enemy who has no regard for his own life, let alone the life of his children? How do you fight that?
Yeah, it was very horrifying. People take that for granted. People just think that, here you are in a war where tens of millions of people were killed all over the world. And everybody that was involved not only has seen death and probably killed a lot of people, and not because they wanted to kill, but because it was just a part of war, but they probably had close friends die right next to them. And so you can imagine how hardened their heart is. And when they saw kamikazes, it horrified them.
Oh, yeah.
They couldn't believe the disregard for life. At least everybody else that died around them up to that point were dying, and it almost seemed like for a cause, and they fought hard and they died a good death. To kill yourself in war was a very, very foreign thing to the American fighters, and probably to the Europeans that were the European allies that were fighting along with us. Because I'm sure that they were still fighting along with us in some regard, in some ways, out there in the Pacific. But yeah, that was a horrifying thing for them.
And the brainwashing of the citizenry in Japan during World War II was just mind-numbing, to the point to where American soldiers land on the island and they see an entire village of women and children that see them, and they run off the cliff into the ocean to commit suicide because it would be more horrible, whatever stories they told them that the Americans would do to you. That was more believable and more plausible than going ahead and dying.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that they decided to do to try to fix that, because they figured they must be saying what we will do to them is got to be horrific for them to want to do this. So there was a campaign put into place that educated people. It was like flyers, leaflets, all kinds of stuff dropped on them to let them know that we're not going to do that stuff. We want a peaceful end to this war. And in fact, the POWs from Japan were treated so well. And I don't know how they got the word back to Japan and how well they were being treated, but I guarantee you there were probably videos and pictures taken of them being fed and getting to play games and stuff, and that way they wouldn't fight to the death like they were. But ultimately, that kind of behavior led to the decision to drop 2 nukes on them. Right. And I don't think that would have happened if they weren't so hell-bent on fighting all the way to the death, because they knew there was calculations made by the generals in the Pacific that were trying to figure out if it was going to be better to drop nukes or to fight a mainland ground war. And by many, many times they decided it's going to be a much more humane end to the war if we drop 2 nukes on them than if we try to fight a ground war. And they were right. So for all you social justice warriors out there that think that we're this great evil empire for being the only country in human history to drop nukes on another country, you need to do a little history lesson, and you're acting like an ignorant idiot.
But not necessarily nukes, but because we were the only ones that dropped nukes, but to go ahead and do something as strong and as bold as we did, we had to, especially when we witnessed, they refer to it as Suicide Cliff, Amaripori Point. It's a field northern of Saipan where thousands of civilians and soldiers committed suicide by jumping off the cliff. Thousands. What do you do? It's unthinkable.
Yeah, I'm telling you. I mean, I get in this argument all the time. You just got to know the times. You got to know the culture and just the shock of knowing that these people are going to fight, not just fight to the death, but have the mothers and the women and all the children fight all the way to the death too. It's going to be down to the last woman and child standing, and they were going to fight all the way until the death. And this is going to cost so many hundreds of thousands of American lives too.
Right.
So, but they calculated that it saved a lot. Well, it probably saved everybody. If they're going to fight down to the last person, then yeah, it saved them all. The entire country, it saved them. Of Japan, it saved them.
Right, Japan would no longer be a race. It would be erased for the most part. Or the country, it would be something else completely.
Yeah, there'd be no Japanese left.
Right. So as we're winding down the last 45 minutes of the show, we've got 2 more topics to hit on. We talked about the RyanCare implosion. We just got done speaking about Islam and the terror that's wreaking around the world. And now we are wrapping it up, and we're talking about...
This is information that was brought to me that I thought the president needed to know. about incidental collection, where the president himself and others in the Trump transition team were clearly put into intelligence reports that ended up at this White House and across a whole bunch of other agencies. And I thought it was important for the president to know this. That's why I briefed the speaker this morning, and I came down here as soon as I could.
What is going on with this Obama deep state wiretapping the Trump campaign and the transition team?
Yeah, so I'm glad you used the word deep state, too, because that's what we're really talking about. If you watch all the news, you listen to the news on the left, the news on the right, and you try to piece together what it is they are trying to say, to call it a war between the deep state and elected officials is probably the best way to describe it. And it's so bad that the leader of the House Intelligence Committee has to go to the president directly, not a phone call, because all that's tapped, right?
Right, right.
He has to physically go and whisper into the president's ear. And by the way, there are allies in the House Intelligence Committee who were not even told about this. Trey Gowdy actually told Meet the Press today that he was not told that Nunez was going to go and say anything to the president. So This was like totally under complete secrecy without talking to anybody about it. And it's interesting. It makes you think of what made him feel that he needed to go there. So I guess I don't know how many other sound bites you have about it, but I'd like to kind of walk through, since it was the big news early in the week.
Yes,
basically,
absolutely.
We had this big open hearing in the House Intelligence Committee. This is the House of Representatives had an open public hearing, and the James Comey, who is the FBI director, and Admiral Rogers, who is NSA's director, were going to be questioned by House Intelligence Committee, which are just the congressmen in this committee,
Democrats,
and they were going to take turns.
Right, Democrats and Republicans.
Right. And so it went back and forth between Democrats, who are, as far as I can tell, deep state operatives.
They actually said, and it's the pencil-necked geek that Rush Limbaugh refers to. What's his Schiff? Adam Schiff, from a Democrat from California, who said,
"Oh my gosh!"
Who all he said was Russia. It was Russia.
Yeah, so he wanted to make So he wanted to make it a big old timeline exposing the fact that Russia influenced the election by helping Trump, and Trump knew and was involved because he had all these campaign people who were connected to Russia, and he went through all these different timelines. And if you really stop and dissect it, and you read between the lines, what you find is that what he was really talking about was completely circumstantial. He had no evidence. And the circumstantial evidence that he did talk about was very, very loosely connected. Extremely, it was very, very vague and loose. And
he might even have referred to the Trump dossier.
Right, which right there, as soon as I heard about the dossier, I had to crack up laughing, because that just shows that everything that he's talking about is completely fake. And I can't believe that they keep referring to this thing, because as soon as they do, it's an instant telltale sign that what you're listening to is completely fake and made up.
Right.
And so anyway, so Schiff goes on to do all this, and I'm like, wow, these guys are not letting go of this fake stuff. And then that brings in Nunez, who then questions both Admiral Rogers and Comey. But what I thought was interesting, so I'm watching this thing really carefully, and I noticed that they're asking questions that really fall in line with these incidental wiretap data collection. And what that means is when you wiretap somebody or you're surveilling them, you're supposed to be, if you're using a FISA court wiretap is what we'll call it, you're supposed to be listening to a foreign entity only for the most part, and it's supposed to be for national security reasons. And in the course of listening to these people, surveilling them, if you will, there's a chance that they could be talking to an American citizen.
Right.
And if they do that, if that happens, it's called incidental. And incidental is a good word to use to describe it because they weren't meant to actually surveil those people. They just incidentally were talking to these foreign entities that were being surveilled through a FISA surveillance order. So what we find out is that Trump and Trump's family and Trump's campaign personnel,
including Pence,
right? These people were captured as what they call incidental data collected by them, and the questions in the hearing were asking the NSA and FBI through Comey and Rogers. Exactly what are the procedures when you run into these incidentals? What do you do? And they point out that they would erase these incidentals unless it was of national security concern, whether it be a direct threat to America or if they're recording something that was illegal. So, for instance, if they were recording, let's say, Michael Flynn, and they discovered, oh, that's Michael Flynn, that's General Flynn, we shouldn't be recording him. But while we're listening to him, hey, he's talking about colluding with Russian officials to help Trump get elected. That would certainly be illegal. And so they would keep that then. That would be an example of something that they would record that initially was incidental data that turns out to be something that they're going to keep because they're discussing illegal activities. Well, what we find out is that incidental data was collected, and when asked whether or not they would keep this, they were very clear. They would say no, they wouldn't keep it because it wouldn't have any of those criteria. It didn't fall under that criteria. So they would erase it, and in addition to erase it, it would not be reported on. And the other thing that they were asking about, that they went into great detail on, is the unmasking of personnel that were being recorded. So, for instance, if Flynn was being recorded, when do you go public with the fact that we captured him in an incidental recording? That would be considered unmasking. And they went into great detail as to whether or not you would unmask him. And if so, who would be responsible for doing that? Who is authorized to do that? And they answered these questions. All these questions were answered. And by the time I heard all of the questions and all the answers, it sounded to me that the only way that anybody in the FBI or NSA would keep and record any incidental data from Trump, his family, or anybody that worked for him in any capacity would be if they got any illegal data or if they got anything that was a direct threat to the U.S. We're pretty sure, you and I, Brian, you can chime in on this if you want. We're pretty sure that no illegal data has been collected from any of those people. It would be front page news all over the place. They would unmask it, and they would impeach Trump, and they would probably throw in jail anybody involved in any of this stuff.
Right.
And so while I'm listening to this, I'm thinking, this isn't really uncovering anything. And by the time the entire hearing was over, I felt like it was a whole bunch of nothing. And I really felt like follow-up questions that should have been asked weren't asked. And I thought, man, I really feel like these people were let off the hook. Obama's let off the hook. Comey's let off the hook. Admiral Rogers let off the hook. All the Democrats involved with this are let off the hook. What the hell is going on here? Well, it wasn't until the next day.
Hold on.
Go
ahead. Maxine Waters tweeted out, right after that, impeachment coming soon.
That's right. And not only did she do that, but the very next morning after the hearing, every single liberal news outlet. Every one of them, all the mainstream media, the fake stream media, the Tonight Show stuff with Seth Meyers and that idiot from, I don't even care what his name is, from Comedy Central. Everybody, they all not only reported the same thing, but all of them were made into clips and trending on YouTube. And they were all saying the same thing. And what were they saying? They were saying Trump lied. Comey proved in the questioning, in the hearing, that Trump lied about Obama wiretapping. Lied. When he said it, he lied. And it's been proven in the hearing. So we were all feeling really low. We were all feeling bad the next morning after the hearings because it looked like a huge victory lap for the Democrats.
I didn't take it as a victory lap, but I certainly took it as I wanted the smoking gun.
Well, no, right. The smoking gun that they were trying to say was a smoking gun was that I don't, off the top of my head, it's been a whole week now. I don't even know, because you're right. There really wasn't a smoking gun. I really wish I could remember the exact thing they were trying to say was proof that Trump lied about the wiretapping. I remember now. The question Comey was asked about the wiretapping was that Trump said that there was wiretapping. Is this true? And Comey answered, I don't have any evidence that was the case. And of course, it turns out somebody's lying, right? So we're all saying,
whoa. So I guess we've lost Carrie.
Hold on a second.
Oh, there we go. We got him on the line. Hold
on 1 second.
So
all right, you hear me?
Yeah, we're being sad. We're sad.
Okay, I'm back.
The next day.
Yeah, so later on that same day, the next morning is when all those trending videos came out. And I was just sick to my stomach. And I said, I don't believe this. I don't believe them when they say that we have proof that Trump lied. I don't believe them. And I don't think that Comey said that. And I almost took the time to put together a video exposing the fact that what Comey answered didn't prove Trump was lying. And before I got a chance to go through all the work to put that together, Nunez was at the White House answering questions of the mainstream media. Was asking what was he doing there. And do you have that soundbite, or should we just describe it?
Just the soundbite that I played to start this this episode off, or this.
Yeah. So basically, what he said is that the FBI is obstructing a congressional investigation into why the FBI would be wiretapping Donald Trump.
Right. So Nunez
we asked all these questions of FBI, and it's been weeks now, and they won't answer our inquiries.
Right.
And right there, I realized, oh my God, we've got a major issue here. We're at civil war, people. It's as simple as that. We're in a civil war, and James Comey, Admiral Rogers, several of the Democrat congressmen that are trying to go along with these people, they're all part of this giant deep state cabal who's trying to retain control of the government and not giving over power to our duly elected President Donald Trump. And what we have here is there's a couple of congressmen, Nunez being one, who is trying to expose them. And when he came out with that and a couple other things that he made statements on, it started to make sense why he asked those questions. He asked the questions about the incidentals, and he asked the questions about the unmasking, because he knew that these people were illegally surveilled. And by illegally, I mean they got the FISA warrant to tap the key people that they knew they would end up with incidentals of the Trump administration.
Right.
And then they unmasked these people in order to gain political points, such as, I'll give you an example, the eventual firing of General Flynn. That's a big win for the deep state and big win for the Democrats, being able to get General Flynn fired. They were able to get him fired by illegally unmasking him using data, incidental data, from an illegal, like the wiretap was legal, but I think that we're going to find out soon that the FISA warrant was only awarded to the Obama administration because they used a fake dossier and they were going after surveilling certain foreign entities for the sole purpose of collecting the incidentals. Does that make sense?
Right. No, absolutely.
They're only going after the incidentals. They don't care they only care about getting the legal wiretap in order to get the illegal information.
Right. At all costs. At all costs.
Yeah, it's just nuts. It's absolutely nuts.
I'm going to set this up. During this whole thing with James Comey, there was one instance where I don't know why they went down this road. One of the female Democrats, Miss Stefank, she's asking him questions, and this pertains to Russian hacking of the election. And just this is how it played out. And let me WikiLeaks came out and had something to say at this, and really put Comey in a very very bad light.
I think what we can say in an unclassified setting is what we have in the report, that there were efforts to penetrate organizations associated with the Republican Party, and that, I think that's what we said in the report, and that there were not releases of material hacked from any Republican-associated organizations.
But the hacking, the use of cyber tools as part of their broader, whether you call it hybrid warfare or information warfare campaigns, it was done to both parties.
Correct.
Okay. Now listen. This is the main part to hear. Here's what he says about the information that was hacked from the Republicans.
I think that's what we said in the report, and that there were not releases of material.
Okay, did you hear that? He's saying, this is under oath, that the Trump campaign, the Republican organization, was hacked by the Russians, but the information was not released.
Okay, so what they're trying to argue here is that they didn't release it because they wanted Trump to win.
They're working together. Yeah, they're working together, colluding. They're colluding.
Can you play the first bite again? Because I want to point something out. Oh, damn it. Do you have that queued up? Oh, did you get rid of it already? No, there's something really important in that bite that I think is worth hearing again. Listen to it really carefully if you got it queued up, and I'll comment on what I hear if you have it.
Holy hell's bells!
Did you just totally get rid of it? It's like lost to the ether. Nothing? No? Mr. Producer is sleeping back there.
We just dropped the ball on that one. There's the purge. Here's the purge. All right, got the purge.
I think what we can say in an unclassified setting is what we have in the report, that there were efforts to penetrate organizations associated with the Republican Party, and that, I think that's what we said in the report, and that there were not releases of material hacked from any Republican-associated organizations.
But the hacking, the use of cyber...
Okay, right there. Okay, this is key. There were efforts to penetrate the Republican organization. He did not say that they were successful, and I don't think that that's an accident, because if they were successful, he would have said that.
WikiLeaks dropped a bomb and said, on the contrary, Mr. James Comey, DCLeaks did leak what they had on the Republicans, but there wasn't nothing there. There wasn't nothing juicy. There was no detail.
Right.
There wasn't nothing there.
Yeah, in fact, it was Sean Hannity. Sean Hannity asked him in an interview, why don't people release or hack into Donald Trump? And his answer was, The guy's an open book. What in the heck would you find that's secret?
Right, and apparently DCLeaks had put everything out that they could find, but nobody cared because there wasn't nothing there.
It was Julian Assange that said that. He said, there's no, like, everybody knows everything about Donald Trump. I mean, what would they find? What would they, I mean, I guess they could, I suspect what he was trying to say was, yes, he was hacked. Yes, they got all his information. Why hasn't it been released? Because there's nothing newsworthy there.
Right, but Comey's saying that the reason
that it was not successful. It wasn't successful. Nobody followed up on that. How come I'm the only one that recognized that wording? You got to listen to the wording very carefully.
Oh yeah.
He said that there was an attempt to penetrate the Republican servers, and the follow-up question was, so you're saying they both got hacked and they didn't release the Republican information? And Comey loved that question. I feel like that woman's a hack, or that she was a plant.
Oh, I feel like that question was planted on purpose. Absolutely.
Yes, to take away from the fact that he admit that they weren't successful. They didn't get into the Republican servers.
Julian Assange says that they did obtain, maybe not from the servers, but they did obtain information on the Republicans, and DCLeaks put it out there.
Okay. Well, it must not have been very juicy.
Yeah, that's what Julian Assange said. There wasn't nothing there.
Well, what about the report from Donald Trump himself, who said that as soon as he found out about the Wikileaks, the DNC leaks,
right, that
he immediately said, whoa, we've got to go through and make sure that we're secure, because I don't want happening to us what happened to them.
It shut them down. And matter of fact, Reince Priebus, obviously appointed by Trump, to go ahead and let the FBI come in and look through their stuff and help them become how does the FBI you're just going to let us walk in? Okay. I'm sure they looked through it looking for juicy stuff, man. They knew there wasn't nothing there. But the DNC rebuked and did not allow the FBI and Stonewall blocked the FBI from coming in and looking at their stuff. Because they knew they were dirty. Man,
if you really look at all the facts and make a distinguish between what is fact, what's real, and what is not real. Like, for instance, when Comey says that we know for a fact that there were efforts to penetrate the Republican Party's server, what he's not saying, but is a fact, is that they didn't succeed, because if they did succeed, he would have worded it totally different. He would have said, we know for a fact that they penetrated and they got everything.
When he's saying,
that's what he would have said.
And he's saying, well, they didn't release it on purpose because, you read between the lines. They're working.
No, they didn't release it because they didn't get it. So, yeah, that's the thing you got to realize. If you take all the facts and you figure it out, what you realize is that the DNC, the Democrats, everybody, it's a huge cover-up. There's something really wrong going on here when you realize that the FBI wasn't allowed to check out the DNC servers to find out how bad the hack was, or how to fix it, or how to make it so that they can't hack anymore. I mean, what are they hiding from the FBI? And why would the FBI, based on everything that we know today, why would they care? If they found something incriminating, they would probably sweep it under the rug, because they obviously are on the side of the people that are going to support the deep state, which would be the DNC.
Right, absolutely. This week, Rush Limbaugh said 90% of DOJ, FBI, IRS, State Department voted for Hillary. Almost most court systems far left. And that was the other thing. I mean, this is just all part of the deep state. And it's not just a little blurb of what's going on. In the VA hospitals where President Obama's picture is,
right,
should be Trump's picture, right?
You would think so.
No. There are VA hospitals around the world, around America, where his picture is not put up, and veterans go up and ask, and they say, well, it's just what it is. We can't do anything about that. It's beyond our control. Yes.
Yeah, there's a lag. You know how bureaucracies work. We put in the order for a picture. We were waiting at least 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years maybe to get the picture in.
Right.
It's the bureaucracy. What are you gonna do?
Right.
Oh my God.
So it's on and on. But the thing is that Nunez said that what they see right now is that Trump's organization, his what they call it, a transition team, the entire transition team, November, December, and January, had all been completely watched over, looked at, just people, FBI just digging through them. And check this out. So McCain says that Nunez's behavior is very disturbing.
Okay.
McCain said his behavior is very disturbing for him to come out and do that.
Why?
Because you're talking about John McCain, the Democrat John McCain, who is part of the deep state.
That would be my follow-up question to him is why?
Right. So for those of you who just joined the show, we're almost finished. We're about down to 20 minutes, and we're talking about the deep state. We're wrapping up the Comey incident, and then the very next day, Nunez coming out and absolutely destroying all the Democrats and giving them heartburn and tears in their eyes because come to find out, whether it was Obama or not, nobody knows for a fact. However, you've got former CIA intel officer, Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer. He gets paid a lot of money. The more words that are in front of your name, the longer your title, the more you get paid. So he's on Fox, and he's asked about this, and this is what he has to say about the wiretapping.
Well, we know, notably, 2 weeks ago this morning, we were here having this conversation right after Mr. Trump's tweet, so it's been 2 weeks.
Right.
We know now that the basic fundamental idea and claim is true. Something happened, and, we have to understand that when Mr. Trump tweeted wiretapping, it wasn't two-pair cable being tapped in as data, phone numbers, data. And Trump Tower, I think, is euphemistic like the whole campaign. So what we know now is that there is some level of collection not relating to the Russia investigation or Russia issue that has now come forward. And I think what we're seeing now here, frankly, is a work of walking the razor's edge. Mm-hmm. We have to be careful about giving up what we call tools, techniques, and technology of how things were collected. At the same time, we know now that even if this collection was done legally, the unmasking of names and the dissemination are probably felony-level crimes that break not only protocol, but break the law.
I mean, that's exactly what it is.
Amen.
Right.
Yeah, amen. Wow.
And he goes on and he talks a little bit more about this, but the whole thing is that they call it gossip. This is gossip. There's no intel value at all in all of these wiretaps. There's no intel value, which causes another problem. He goes on and talks about how back in the day, it may take you a few minutes to delete and remove and purge that kind of information. He said now, within a fraction of a second, we can purge that and not think twice about it very quickly.
Highlight, control, alt, delete, something. I mean, that's about probably as quick as you could do it. Because a lot of this data collection, we're talking about audio, let's say, if you're actually listening in on somebody's conversation. Well, these audio files are just digital, like MP3s or something. And if you've ever done any kind of audio editing, you know how easy it is to clip out a chunk of the audio that's going to be deleted. And you would do that per law and regulation. And how do we know that these are the rules? because these questions were asked on Monday at the open hearing, and we got answers to it. We know what the criteria is for purging this data that's collected because it's incidental and it has no intel value, and also it does not fall under the FISA warrant. It would be illegal. It'd be a violation of somebody's Fourth Amendment to do this.
Absolutely. This is worse than Watergate, exponentially worse than anything we've ever seen before. Rand Paul was on Fox, and his statement was, well, everyone on both sides admits someone listened to General Flynn.
Right.
We all agree. Trump agrees somebody listened to Flynn, so he fired him. The Democrats agree somebody listened to Flynn, so that's how Trump got the information to fire. So everybody knows we listened to Flynn. So,
right, and if you read the New York Times a month before the election, or maybe it was a couple days before the election, they reported right in their newspaper that Donald Trump's campaign is wiretapped.
Right. So everybody knows what's going on. It's there. Everybody knows what's going on. And then not big story in the sense of big, but this kind of goes hand in hand or hand in glove with this entire deep state. Wikileaks, Vault 7 dark matter. It's really cool. I like how they do that. CIA bugging iPhones at the factory.
Oh, yeah.
And here it is. CIA projects that CIA infect Apple Mac computer firmware, meaning the infection persists even if the operating system is reinstalled. It's still there. You can't get it out. Second,
it's like a physical part of the actual drive.
Right. So there's just three of many examples that they're starting to uncover. The second example, among other of these documents, revealed the sonic screwdriver. It's a sonic screwdriver project, which, as explained by the CIA, is a mechanism for executing code on peripheral devices while a Mac, laptop, or desktop is booting. What that means is when you hit the on button and it's booting up, you have an option to stop the boot and go into DOS or do something else while it's in boot mode. For those of you geeks that know, I know I'm not saying it right, but for us lay people, that's what happens. You can press F keys at the top. Well, it doesn't matter with sonic screwdriver. They automatically are in there and can be retrieve information from the system while it's booting. So you don't even have a chance to stop it.
Wow.
And then go ahead.
Well, I'm wondering at what point was the CIA and given the green light to do something that is so obviously against the Fourth Amendment? Obviously.
What if they make the case? Oh, well, we're not using that unless we get a warrant.
Well, and also we know from past experience that. Do you remember when there was the big issue that Apple was asked by the intelligence community years ago, a couple years ago, to give them the access to anybody's phone and all their, and Apple said, no, we're not going to do that. And it was really kind of a scary moment for them for several weeks because they were making all these threats that you got to allow us to do it. And I got to give Apple a hell of a lot of credit for standing their ground because they were on the side of the right. I felt deep down inside that they were on the side of the right. However, I felt like they were going to lose this battle, and they ended up winning it in a sense. But in the long run, we ended up losing because the reason the CIA backed down is because they came out and said, you know what? We don't no longer need you to give us access. We just got it ourselves. Bye-bye.
You know how they got it? Well, other than this, some tech geeks said that they figured out that if you turn the phone on and while it's coming back up, they have a program to beat it before it asks you for a password so you can get into it because it was password protected.
You would think that they'd be able to come out with subsequent iPhones that would actually not allow for that.
You would think. Well, now you get this. The CIA is actually bugging the phones at the factory. And the third way that WikiLeaks, their Vault 7 deep matter, it's called Dark Sea Skies, is an implant that persists in the EFI firmware of an Apple MacBook Air computer and consists of dark matter, CP, and night skies, respectively, kernel space and user space implants. Dude, they're in there. They're permanently in there.
Yikes! I mean, so what do? Do you just hope that you don't get on their radar?
You don't buy an iPhone for sure.
Well, I find it look what they did to the Samsung TVs. And I find it really hard to believe that from what you just reported on the Apple stuff and what we've already learned about the Samsung TVs and the toasters and all that stuff, that they probably they probably have something already in Android devices. And by the way, Google is becoming a totalitarian entity in and of themselves. I don't know if you followed Paul Joseph Watson, you know this, but I already knew it before he reported it because of people like Philip DeFranco and some other people that I follow on YouTube. YouTube is owned by Google, and YouTube is turning into dictator for the most part, and they're taking away the voice of all conservatives.
Right. No, I agree 100%.
Right. Yeah. Did you hear that or watch that video that Paul Joseph Watson came out with that was called something like "This may be my last YouTube video"? And he described it's a great video. If you're listening right now and you haven't seen it, it just came out I think yesterday or maybe the day before. And watch it more than once. It's kind of a long video, but it is so well done. It is chock full of all the arguments and all the different information that has come out about what YouTube is trying to do and what it all means. And he did a really good job on it. And watch it because, YouTube is a big voice for conservatives. And he points out that with YouTube content, conservatives are obliterating progressives in argument. The progressives cannot win when conservatives are allowed a voice on YouTube because young people go to YouTube and they watch these videos and they're being red-pilled. Right. And what Paul Joseph Watson points out is that YouTube has realized that if people like him and other people that I follow and InfoWars and all these people are able to red-pill young adults and even high school kids, that this is going to be devastating for their movement, what little movement they have, the communism, progressives, whatever. And so they have to put a stop to it, and they are doing a damn good job of doing it. And they have a long-term plan in place in order to completely silence the conservative voices on YouTube. And it's all in that video. It's great.
So check this out. Maxine Waters, I told you about her. She goes on C-SPAN, it's some channel. She's sitting down with somebody. It's only a minute long, but listen to what she accidentally spills the beans on what Obama has done, has collected, and has set up.
Made clear to our viewers and listeners is that, look, the inauguration represented the beginning of his second term.
Yes.
But it also represented the countdown of the end of his presidency.
That's right.
And the reality is, like anything else, you better get what you can while he's there because, look, come 2016, that's it.
Well, I don't know, and I think some people are missing something here. The president has put in place an organization that
She's talking about President Obama.
Contains the kind of database that no one has ever seen before in life. That's going to be very, very powerful, and whoever...
In terms of the Organizing for America that he's now shifting to become a 501c4.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And that database will have information about everything on every individual in ways that it's never been done before. And whoever runs for president on the Democratic ticket have to deal with that. They're going to have to go down with that database and the concerns of those people because they can't get around it. And he's been very smart. I mean, it's very powerful what he's leaving in place. And I think that's what any Democratic candidate is going to have to deal with.
And very illegal.
How is that? How is it that I stumble across this and nobody's ever heard? What the hell is?
I've heard that. Yeah, I have heard that audio. It's kind of old. It came out before Trump was even running, right?
Right. But it lends credence to what we're talking about Obama.
Oh, absolutely. That's a very relevant video clip. In fact, that I'll tell you where I heard that video. When that debacle with the Edward Snowden and all that kind of stuff was coming out, that video was dug up to point out that we shouldn't be allowing this and we should be rallying behind Edward Snowden, who is a national hero and all this kind of stuff, is what the argument was. So there's these two competing sides. But at the time that she said that, I don't think there was even a thought of the whistleblowers. You could tell by the way she's talking about it that these people who ran our government for the previous 8 years not only had no clue about anything in the Bill of Rights, rights of people, privacy, all that, had no clue. The confidence with which she talks about this data collection proves to me that it doesn't, there's not even a question of any kind of legalities to this whatsoever. And also that if you were to tell her that it's probably illegal, that she would say, well, we're above the law because we are the law. We make law. We write this stuff. It's kind of like the guy, I just came from a venue where they pat you down and you're only allowed in certain places if you have wristbands and they have these crowd control gates up all over the place. It's almost like the guy who sets up the gates and the fences to keep people out of certain areas. They just walk in and out of those areas. They don't have to have a wristband. And if they were asked why they were allowed in a certain area without a wristband, they'd say, I set up these barriers.
Right.
I could do whatever I want. I mean, I did this. I made this. And that's the way these lawmakers think. They're like, well, we make the laws. We're not really subject to them. And if we were and we didn't like them, we'd rewrite them.
Anyway,
so
it don't matter.
Yeah. And that's the way she sounds in this. And I don't think that it's just her. I think that it's a systemic problem with progressives overall. They're power hungry. They want to have the power so they don't have to be subject to it. And we just need to keep them out of power.
Right? Did you hear that the infamous Susan Rice, because she's so infamous?
She's infamous.
Yeah, she's got so much fame that she's infamous. She writes an op-ed piece. When the White House twists truths, we are all less safe. Why veracity matters to our security.
Who wrote that?
Susan Rice, that did all the talk shows, Sunday talk shows after Benghazi.
Yeah, she's a big old liar. Well, I mean, you didn't even have to remind me of that if she's a progressive, she's a liar. It's as simple as that. When they say that honesty in the White House is really important and that we need it and we don't have it, they're lying about that. Why? Because they lie about everything. So that Donald Trump and everybody that's in the administration, at least in the White House, are being honest when progressives are calling them liars. Because when a liar calls you a liar, you must be very honest.
Well, yeah, you're honest and you're telling something that they don't want other people to hear about. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, it wouldn't bother them if it really was untrue, but it's true and it really hurts. Truth hurts.
Hey, real quick, we got about a minute left. In the state of Georgia, there's a Muslim couple, a husband and wife, Muslim, and their name is, their last name is, one's last name is Smith and the other last name is Jones. Well, they just had a baby girl, and they want to name the girl's last name Allah.
Okay.
And the state of Georgia says, no, that's illegal. It's got to be either your last name or the mother's last name, or a combination of both?
What if you, aren't you allowed to legally change your name?
The girl would have to, she could go to court. She would have to be named, then go to court, and then change her last name. But apparently he doesn't want to do that.
Oh, well, that's, of course it's controversial because it's Allah. But if they wanted to name, the kid's last name Christ, that probably wouldn't be controversial to not allow them to do that.
And then also high school demanding that the boys tolerate undressing with they say girl, to make it natural. There's a tranny in the high school that wants to undress with the boys. I'm telling you right now that she's probably a very not a looker. And so that's why the boys want her out of the locker room.
Oh, my goodness.
Woo! Fast 3 hours you spend anywhere, folks. Share it with your friends and your family. Like it, thumb it up, subscribe it, whatever it takes.
With unfathomable power.
What kind of power?
Unfathomable. It's without fathom.